Good evening and welcome. I will call the Yakima City Council Business Meeting of June 17, 2025 to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Berg.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Byers.
Present.
Decio.
Here.
Glenn.
Here.
Herrera.
Here.
Roy.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we'll have interpreter services.
Yes, good evening. Jorge Villaseñor, Language Connection. Si alguien necesita la ayuda de un intérprete, tenemos el sistema disponible para hacerlo. Gracias.
Gracias. Next is public comment. I'm going to say a few things about public comment this evening. The first is that if you are here to address anything involving the trolley, you have three options. The first is public comment. The second is a public hearing on the TIB, and the third is a public hearing on the TBD. So choose whichever option is going to be the most helpful to you, all right? Then there will be 35 minutes allotted for public comment and 2.5 minutes for each speaker in order to allow as much opportunity as possible for audience participation. Written communication and email messages are strongly encouraged in advance of the meeting. We do have one that was submitted this evening that we read out loud. It was submitted to be read because the person does not have internet and couldn't be here on Zoom. So, okay. State law prohibits State law prohibits electioneering at city facilities. During public comment, speakers cannot campaign for or against candidates or support or oppose any ballot measures in an upcoming election. All right. So right now I have a stack in front of me that says public comment. So I'll start there. But first I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Brown to read the one public comment that was submitted and asked to be read.
All right, Council. Hello, I live in Sela and enjoyed riding the Yakima Valley trolleys first with my parents, then my children, and now my grandchildren. I am hoping a creative solution can be found to address the concerns of the people that live and work around 6th Avenue, but also find a way to save the trolleys for future generations to enjoy. My hope is experts on both sides of the issue can have some discussions and work out a path forward that is beneficial for everyone. We have a very unique part of history here, and if grants and sponsors can be found to at least keep the trolleys going, then that's a win. Not everything needs to make a profit. Some things are valuable and important enough to keep because once they are gone, that's it. And that would be a sad thing and an unnecessary missed opportunity for our area. Thank you for reading this. Don Shepard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Brown. Next is Emily Nelson.
Good evening, council members. My name is Emily Nelson, and I'm here on behalf of Educational Service District 105, which is the Regional Education and Support Office. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today in recognition of Pride Month. At ESD 105, our mission is to serve, lead, and advocate for equitable learning opportunities for all. That means ensuring that every young person, regardless of their race, ability, gender identity, or sexual orientation, feels safe, supported, and empowered to thrive in school and in life. We know from research and lived experience that when queer youth are affirmed, when they are surrounded by adults who see their strengths, value their identities, and create inclusive spaces, they flourish. To us LGBTQIA+ students with even one trusted adult in their lives are significantly more likely to report higher self-esteem, stronger school engagement, and a sense of belonging that carries into adulthood. Unfortunately, we also know that the need for support is urgent. According to Washington's 2023 Healthy Youth Survey, when asked if they had made a plan to attempt suicide in the past year, 31.3% of 8th graders, 34.8% of 10th graders, and 17.9% of 12th graders who are sexually and gender diverse students said yes to that question. In contrast, fewer than 9% of their non-sexually gender diverse peers responded the same. When asked if they had seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year, the disparities were even more stark. 34.8% of sexually or gender diverse 8th graders, 36.9% of 10th graders, and 24.8% of 12th graders answered yes, compared to just 11.5, 8.0, and 7.9% of their non-sexually or gender diverse peers, respectively. These numbers are not just statistics, they are a call to action. Our queer youth are asking to be seen, to be heard, and to be supported. At ESD 105, we believe in the power of education to transform lives, and we also believe in the power of visibility, community, and celebration. That's why ESD 105 will be walking in the Yakima Pride Parade this year. We invite you, every one of you as council members, and everyone in our community, to attend the parade. Please come celebrate with us, our students, our families, and educators who continue to lead with courage, creativity, and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Next is Tony Corsi.
Tony Corsi. Many years ago I came here. I never even stood up in schools and did all this stuff that you guys decided want to dance with. One thing I do know is dance, and I do know music, and I do know my life story. And if you're going to change my life story, make sure you do it right, or I will dispute it. So understand this. I've been fortunate enough to see all walks of life. Impressed me, you guys have not, except for the crosswalk at Hathaway, prior to that many years ago. So understand also this. When asked the question, you guys are adults, should be able to answer, and that goes to past council too. And I don't care if you're a lawyer or the President of the United States. I've been fortunate enough to take a train from Yakima to New York. I wonder how many people here have did that. But we're going backwards because you can't even do that now. And you're trying to save a trolley. You can't even do crosswalks or help people with wheelchairs. And I've seen it with my own eyes, people trying to cross the intersection with wheelchairs. Yeah, we're fortunate enough, and you better thank God or whoever your higher power is. I'm not preaching to you, but you can walk, talk, and hear. And if somebody asks you a question, you can at least be courteous enough to say, let me look into it and get the answers. But no, you guys think it's all funny and a joke. Yeah, the money that came in was not for just a certain area of the city. It was for all the city. And I do know how to do business, and I do know how to close up a business, and I don't have to be where I want to be if I don't want to be there. So you guys, and understand, the corner 16th Hathaway, you guys got it on record, and it shows that that is mine. Now, if the lawyers and the judge all don't want to stand there and say it's not, then show me how it could not be. I've asked so many questions, you guys, and even though you guys took this stand and got in there, some of you just got in there because you found a little situation that the city didn't want everybody to know about. District 5.
Thank you, Mr. Corsi.
Come on, Rick.
Mr. Bueller, is there anyone online who wishes to make public comment this evening?
Not during this portion, but later on during the public hearings.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller. Then when we move on to open discussion for the good of the order, and this is the nominating committee, and Reedy Berg, the chair of that committee, will give a report.
All right, so we met June 9th at 4 p.m., Mr. Roy, Mr. Glenn, and myself, and conducted interviews. First interviews were for the Public Facilities District Board. And after the interviews, Mr. Glenn moved and Mr. Roy seconded to recommend Ryan Beckett and Sheldon Butler to the Public Facilities District Board. That was a unanimous vote. Moving on, I moved and Mr. Glenn seconded to recommend James Park for reappointment to the Henry Beauchamp Junior Community Advisory Committee, and that was a unanimous decision. Going on, I moved again, and Mr. Roy seconded to recommend Paul Edmondson and Cynthia Hall for reappointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. That was a unanimous decision. I moved, and Mr. Roy seconded to recommend Rob Bryant for reappointment to Parks and Rec Commission. Also unanimous. I moved, and Mr. Roy seconded to recommend Bruce Whitmore to Parks and Rec Commission. Also unanimous. Mr. Glenn moved and Mr. Roy seconded to recommend Jerry Ketchum for reappointment to the Tree City USA Board as the Yakima Arboretum representative. That was also unanimous. And then finally, I moved and Mr. Glenn seconded to recommend Jacob Nowlin to the Tree City USA Board. That was also unanimous. And then we adjourned at 4:59 p.m.
Thank you, Councilman Berg.
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt the council nominating committee recommendations.
Second it.
So we have a motion by Deputy Mayor Brown, a second by Councilman DCO to approve the names nominated by the nominating committee to
All the committees.
all the committees. Thank you. We'll just take an agreement vote on that and show of hands. All of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you to the nominating committee for the work you did. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items listed are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. A council member may request to remove an item from the consent agenda, and if approved, it will be placed on the regular agenda for discussion and consideration. Does any council person wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, then clerk, would you read the agenda, please?
Item 7A is approval of minutes from the June 3rd, 2025 City Council regular meeting and June 10, 2025 City Council study session. Item B is approve of payment of disbursements for the period of May 1st through 31st, 2025. Item C is the May 2025 investment transaction report. Item D is set date of July 15, 2025 for a closed record public hearing to consider proposed amendments to the Yakima Municipal Code Title 14 subdivisions and Title 15 urban area zoning ordinance. Item E is a set date of July 22nd, 2025 for a closed record public hearing to consider a proposed rezone in the light industrial zoning district. Item F is a resolution amending resolution number R-2024-126 adopted July 16, 2024 and authorizing the existence of change funds and other petty cash funds within the various funds of the City of Yakima. Item G is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Yakima Mechanical, Inc. for the City Hall Chiller Replacement Project 2858. Item H is a resolution authorizing an agreement with Washington Traffic Safety Commission to provide pass-through funding from the U.S. Department of Transportation to fund a police officer position for impaired driving patrol. Item I is a resolution authorizing the city manager to extend and amend the city's current contract with CWA, Inc. for Yakima-Ellensburg commuter services. Item J is a resolution authorizing the execution of Amendment 5 to the interagency agreement with Department of Ecology for the former Tiger Oil site located at 2312 West Nob Hill Boulevard, Project 2799. Item K is an ordinance amending the City of Yakima Municipal Code Section 7.50.110, meter access, to add new Section C.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second it.
So we have a motion by Deputy Mayor Brown and a second by Councilman DCO to approve the consent agenda as presented. We'll need
Real
a,
quick, she said $27.99 and my paper says $29.99. Does that matter? Which one is it?
on J. It should actually be,
The agenda reads $29.99.
yeah,
Oh, I read the title of the resolution, so it'd be 2799.
okay. Thank you for the clarification, appreciate that. All right, then we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Berg,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Byers,
Yes.
Decio,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Herrera,
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
All right, so the motion is 7-0 and passes, and all the resolutions are passed and adopted. Thank you, council. The next is public hearing, which we will not start until 6 o'clock, so we're going to drop down to department items, starting with item A, which is an ordinance relating to updating the Transportation Benefit District Project, TBD Fund. And Bill Preston, our Community Development Director, is going to speak to council.
Actually, I'm going to ask that you actually bump that one, because we really can't have that one without having
Public hearing.
the public hearing, item B, correct.
Then item B is the Budget Advisory Committee final report, and Gina Hernandez and Angie Gerard are going to present to council. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Council. Gina Hernandez.
I'm Angie Gerard. Thanks for having us. I want to make sure, are we on this? Whoops, there. Go back to the, okay. So I'm going to do some quick thank yous to everybody. Our committee members for this ad hoc committee were Gunnar Berg, Dirk Burnt, myself, Dulce Gutierrez, Gina Hernandez, and Luis Lopez. And we were a very diverse set of members, which was very beneficial for extensively vetting all the possible solutions that we've considered. We really appreciate the openness and the willingness of city staff to provide information and help problem solve, especially some technical issues at some of our meetings, especially Callie and Jennifer. They are amazing. Vicki Baker and Craig Warner, have shown themselves to be phenomenally dedicated to finding creative and the least painful solutions to the budget shortfall. They've been very transparent with not just us, but all of the public about the situation that we're in. So thank you all.
And moving on to slide 3, the considerations. You can see what's there. A lot of what was covered in the last city council meeting presentation by your staff clearly gives you the picture that the city is in definite need of additional revenue, and they recommended levies. This particular group is along similar lines. Just want to change that slightly. Obviously, running the city and the inflation, the cost of living, all those different details, all those different costs are affecting this city as much as it is others. One thing we didn't know early on is that it appears Yakima has not passed a voter-approved tax, not a bond, not a council-approved addition to the stormwater at a little bit that brings in only $200,000 total for a year. But it appears the city of Yakima has not approved a tax since at least the 1990s, but probably maybe 1984. I was in high school in 1984. You could walk across the street from Davis to Roy's Burgers and get a burger for less than $2, including your fries and your drink, and it wasn't the kids' menu and it wasn't the cheapo stuff.
I wasn't even born.
Oh, you. That's enough from you.
But you would have done it if you'd have been here.
I remind myself frequently, you're about the age of my oldest child, so I understand. So Yakima has not increased its revenue source by a voter-approved tax in a long time, 40-some years. None of us are operating on the budgets. None of us are wearing the same shoes that we wore 40 years ago. It's a whole different world. We don't pay the same taxes. Houses don't cost the same. It doesn't cost the same to fix your roads. It doesn't cost the same to do anything else along the way. So that's one of the considerations along the way. There were some contracts and partnerships and agreements that may have contributed to some of the costs along the way, but that's not even going to be the issue that the city has to deal with immediately. There were COVID-related dollars in the form of ARPA and the CARES Act funds that masked a little bit for a little while some of the challenges the city was having financially. Those federal funds are not continuing income. Those are dollars that leave us with some things like newer vehicles and dollars that went toward a pool. But there are no further funds to cover payroll requirements or program needs for this year or next year or ongoing. City expenses have been outpacing, again, I got to say it, I'm sorry. The expenses have been outpacing the revenue. But the city's sales tax income is particularly low this year compared to what was projected. So there's one more challenge on top of all the others, okay? In 2020, a levy to sustain operations was presented to the voters because council understood revenue was not sufficient to continue to meet costs. So we've known this is coming for quite some time. The voters, and at least one of the council members who was on council then, rejected that levy. The last time voters in Yakima approved a tax increase, as we said, was '84 for just 1 year, and that was to make improvements to Lions Pool. It was specific. So nothing in the council overall to deal with the cost of the janitor or the vacuum cleaners that have to be replaced or any of those details have had an increase like that. They've all been specific in a bond, even in that particular tax-approved levy. The city's nearing its adoptive reserve, as you'll see, is 0.3. We're projected to be sitting at only about a 3% reserve at the end of the year. That can't be. You won't get credit from anybody. We won't be able to bond anything. It's a major issue. It's a major tragedy for the city if we allow that to happen. A few departments are covered by the general budget, the general fund, and very few have their own sources of revenue. So they can't replenish themselves. I heard some folks in some of the presentation, the outreach that your city manager say, you only picked certain things to talk about. No, there are only certain things that the general fund deal with. There's certain things within the general fund that have to only be paid for from there. They can't cross over. You can't get it from somewhere else. We looked hard. We'd love to be able to just cut a few things and not increase anybody's taxes. It's not an option. There's not a slush fund. The general budget extends to quality of life services. Those are the snow removal on the roads, maybe, but that's probably more safety, public safety, right? Those are your pools. Those are your community centers, whether that's on the east side or the west side or anywhere else. Those are some major things that folks, again, came out to the outreach that your city manager did and said, we desperately want these. These are gang prevention items. These are a lot of different things that deal with the quality of life. Those are things that we need to look at and consider. And as the city staff presented, they're looking to take those to a levy because they believe the people of Yakima value those things to such an extent that they'll be willing to pay for them. They certainly don't want to see them cut. We heard that plenty. Budget limitations and unfulfilled position, those have caused a situation where we pay more in certain things over time, inefficiencies, those kinds of details. Again, a problem that we would like to see rectified. Our approach to addressing the budget deficit is both revenue generation and budget cuts that will maintain essential services, as well as continuing many of the program services that our community values. I think we're still here. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to move on the next slide.
That one.
Okay. We would come back to you with some cuts that we are looking to do. We're not liking those cuts. They're cuts in areas that have already been cut. Everything that I have seen in the budget that I've been watching here at the city for the last 6 or 7 years has been cut. Not so much in fire and not so much in police, but at the same time we've increased our needs with some of that. I know that folks appreciate the discount to their homeowners insurance when their fire stations are all up operational and everybody's working. Your homeowners insurance frequently will have a lot to do with how well your ratings are within your fire department, and our fire department has done a good job with that. Our current police chief has done a good job of stopping the bleeding of officers that we had a few years back. So while we're grateful for them, there just isn't additional money for them. So again, the quality of life issues, the parks and revenue kind of thing, and the public safety aspect of things. Those are the things we're looking for going forward. You see the current budget allocation is police at over 40%, fire at 20%, parks and recreation at 7.4%, streets and maintenance, IT, and the remaining departments don't have a whole lot there. There's not a lot that isn't extremely valuable to all the residents of Yakima that we should be cutting any of those if we can possibly help it. The committee recommendation.
Mr. Hernandez, I'm going to ask you to stop there. We're at 6 o'clock for public hearing, and we'll have you can either remain there or you can come back.
We'll come back.
Yeah, good plan.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of that. So
That's okay, thanks.
we know exactly where you left off.
Yep, slide 4.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have public hearing. We have two tonight. The first is the public hearing to consider a resolution adopting the 6-year transportation improvement program for the period of 2026 to 2031, and to amend the Transportation System Plan 2040, and B, a resolution amending the Yakima Urban Area Comprehensive Plan Capital Facilities Element. Mr. Bill Preston, our Community Development Director, is going to address council.
Good evening, council. I was going to read that whole title, but you already did it for me, so I don't have to do that. So this annually, I come before you with our 6-year transportation improvement program. This is our tip list. It is a list of regionally significant or statewide significant projects. It is just a plan. And so I wanted to remind everybody of that. A few years ago, I took our existing TIP and I added all of our TBD projects so that they remain in front of the public so that they are aware of the TBD projects. The projects on the list are both funded and unfunded. And so I'm going to go ahead and try and point that out tonight so that there's some awareness of those. There has been a lot of discussion around the federal funding, and we don't know exactly where that's going. So I am going to point out the projects that are federally funded, just so that you're aware of those. Projects that are not federally funded, but still funded, I will just say that they're funded, so that you can kind of get an idea of where I'm going with that. So this is literally the most boring presentation I ever give to you guys, where I just read the names of each and every project for you.
Boring, Bill.
So,
You're never boring, Bill.
I don't know how to make this exciting, so. Okay, so with that said, project number 1, 16th Avenue and Tieton Drive, intersection improvements. That is planned. 18th Street underpass. That is planned. The 2026 Yakima Alley paving, that project is secured, and we do have federal funding for that. The 6th Avenue roadway improvements, that is a TBD project, and that is funded as well out of TBD. The 72nd Avenue and Washington Avenue active transportation component, this is funded as well. 88th Avenue Apple Valley sidewalks, and that is funded. Bravo Company Boulevard, Phase 1, that is planned. Bravo Company Boulevard, Phase 2, also planned. Brown Avenue sidewalk, planned. The City of Yakima bicycle traffic markings, that's green paint, that is funded with federal funds. The Coolidge Road from 72nd Avenue to 84th Avenue, roadway improvements, that is planned. The East H Street extension, Phase 1, planned. Fair Avenue sidewalk, planned. Fred Meyer active transportation pathway, 40th Avenue and Fruitvale Boulevard roundabout, that is partially funded with state funds. Intersection safety improvements at East Nob Hill Boulevard and South 18th Street, that is funded with federal funds. The Meade Avenue pedestrian signal, that's at 10th and 12th, that is planned. First Street and R Street signal, planned. The 16th Avenue sidewalk, this is from the 12 ramp down to River Road, that is secured and with federal funds. Natchez River Bridge repair, that is funded with both state and federal funds. The Nob Hill Boulevard, 28th Avenue to 40th Avenue paving, that is funded with federal funds. Nob Hill Boulevard sidewalk, planned. Nob Hill Elementary school safety improvements, planned. Nob Hill Railroad, number 2 and 72nd Avenue, number 87 bridges, they're joint replacements, planned. North Yakima active transportation improvements, planned. Northeast Yakima sidewalk improvements, planned. Powerhouse Road and Inglewood Avenue intersection improvements, planned. Prash Avenue sidewalk improvements, planned. South First Street and East Washington Avenue intersection improvements, planned. Tieton Drive resurfacing, planned. Washington Avenue and Long Fiber Road intersection improvements, planned. The Wendy Baker shared use path, planned. And the Zero Road sidewalk improvements, planned. So as you can see, there's a lot of planned projects on the list. Projects do come and go as I get up here before you a couple of times a year with amendments to this. But this is the plan that our 6-year TIP that we would like to have approved so that we can submit this to YVCOG for inclusion in the statewide transportation improvement plan, which is a requirement to receive the federal funds. So with that, do you have any questions?
I do have a comment. So right now with federal funds, we don't really know where that's going. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So those things that we would say are federally funded are kind of in limbo at this point.
They may be. It's
Yeah.
a very fluid situation,
Very fluid.
and Sarah's office is really staying on top of that and making sure that we don't move forward with something that we shouldn't.
Okay. So my other question has to do with the 6th Avenue. Is that where the trolley crosses? Is that where all that conundrum kind of
Yes,
takes
6th
place?
Avenue includes the
Okay.
trolley line.
And you said that is funded? Is that federal funding, state funding?
That is TBD. It's 100% TBD.
TBD, okay. So my question is, if we're not ready to move on that project, and I bring this up for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's some things that need to be resolved about the trolley. And number two, honestly, I'm not sure that 6th Avenue is the worst street in the city, and I think there's other streets that we might, in your estimation, what are the worst streets in the city of Yakima?
So, in anticipation of this question, so we categorize or rate our streets based on our PCI, which is Pavement Condition Index, right?
Right.
And so a low score of 1 means it's a gravel road, and then 100 means I just paved it, right? I have, there it is. So, in anticipation of this, I thought I would take a stab at trying to better clarify what kind of condition it's in. If you take a look at the entire project itself, so from Walnut to River Road, the average PCI is 45. And that 45 actually puts it in the bottom 10% of roads for the city. So it's in the bottom 10%. So are there worse roads? Yes, 10% of them. So there's a total of 403 miles, roughly 40 miles of them could be worse. Now, we don't do this we do it by segments. And so some of them can be just a couple hundred feet long, some of them are block long, some of them are longer segments per each section of road based on when improvements have been made, right? So I said, well, I wanted a better look at how that might actually play out. So I broke this project PCI into the same segments that I presented to you about a month ago, where there's the stuff north of Fruitvale, there's the section between Fruitvale and D, and then D south to Walnut, okay? So north of Fruitvale, the PCI, the weighted average of that PCI is 38, and it is the bottom 5% of the city. And in the middle section, it's 42, which is 7.6% or worse. So it's still obviously very bad. And then the segment from D to Walnut is actually at 18%. So it's not quite as bad, but the entire section is, as you can see, 5, 10, or 20%. So there's not many roadways that are worse. It was very interesting. One of the things that he pointed out to me was in that Fruitvale section, if there's 5,400 segments in the city, only 240 sections are worse than that, right? So when I've said before, it's borders on one of the worst sections or is the worst, I think this validates that. That's the best qualitative answer to that question that I can give, I think.
At the end of the day, you get 6th Avenue between Fruitvale and D Street is Garfield's Elementary's there, and so there's a lot of traffic related to the school. When you get north of Fruitvale, the traffic is actually really light. There's not that much traffic that uses it between River Road and Fruitvale. Most of Washington Fruit, they go use River Road to get to 16th and on the freeway, don't they?
The industrial businesses along that would disagree with you. I don't have the exact ADTs before me, but I don't think that statement is quite as accurate as, there's not as big a discrepancy as you might think. There's still a lot of traffic. And the significance of that traffic is it's large, heavy vehicles, which beat up our road. So, which is partly why it's in as terrible shape as it is.
Where you said it was in the bottom 10%, so where do you know which roads are worse in town?
I could find out, but there's 5,442 segments.
Come on.
It's not easy. It's on a spreadsheet, but I didn't bring that spreadsheet.
Bill, did you say this is the $15.3 million project?
Correct.
And you said that's all accounted for?
The project is a TBD funded project, and there are no grants or any other funding identified at this time for it.
Okay. Do we know, just, I guess, bare minimum, I talked to a few of the members of the trolley committee here, what would be the absolute minimum we could do as a city to like keep their historic preservation status? Does anyone know? I don't know.
I don't know
Off the top of your
what
head.
you mean.
Like, instead of a 15.3 million overhaul, because that's like top of the line, is that correct?
That is a replacement of the road, and then a replacement to put the new tracks in. Correct.
Okay. So what would, I guess, just for my understanding, what was the lowest we could do to help the trolleys out? If you don't know it right now, that's okay.
I think the better way to say this is this. I can't fix the road without tearing the trolley tracks out.
Right.
If I tear the trolley tracks out, then you are going to tell me whether I put them in or not. If I put them in, I can't put them in the condition that they are. So it's like all or nothing. There's really...
We can't kind of...
Yeah, I can't just mill off the top and repave the edges, because the middle is still... between the tracks is totally gone.
90 years old.
And all of the subgrade underneath the road is shot. The stuff, all the concrete that's on north of Fruitvale is toast. So unfortunately, it's really all or nothing.
So we're gonna do the trolley. Do we need to pretty much consider we gotta redo it all the way up into Sela? Or at least the overhead wires would have to be redone all the way up? And the tracks, I'm guessing if we're gonna build brand new tracks up to River Road, then it makes sense to run them all the way up to Sela if we're gonna do it.
Well, obviously, those tracks would be outside the scope of the project. However, there is an argument that if this section of tracks needs to be rebuilt, then the remaining 3.5 miles at some point would need to be rebuilt as well. So the city would have to take that into consideration.
So what we're really trying to decide is, it might be tens of millions of dollars to get the trolley the way that the trolley people would like to have it and be functional.
You'd have to ask them exactly how they would like to have it. I'm saying to replace it. I've shared with you for this project what it is, and then I don't have the replacement costs calculated for the rest. You can do some interpolation if you want. I think that's the right word, right?
Extrapolation?
One of those
I was like, I don't know what that word is, but
I'm an engineer, not a linguist.
I think that during the public comment, or during the public hearing, I think we're probably going to hear some ideas that would allow the 6th Avenue project to move forward, and other pieces that could be done later and not totally at the city's expense, because part of the plan is going to be for the trolley to complete its designation as a National Historic Landmark, which will open lots of opportunities for grant funding for future addition to the project, whether it's the wiring or the other track, whatever needs to happen. I'll let them talk about that, but that's something that we do need to consider. That there is, here's my plea. Whether we decide to agree with the funding right now as it stands, or we decide as a council to keep that project on the list without putting any direct funding toward it right now. Either way, we allow the trolley to move forward. And, I'll talk more about that later, but, those are a couple different options to look at, so.
Quick question on that project in particular, in the tip list, because that's what we're talking about right now. So you're saying the funding is coming out of TBD, which I understand, but it's the only project that you were, a lot of them were federal money, this federal money, that federal money, state money. Is there a reason why we just shoved all of 6th Avenue into TBD?
So I don't know how it originally came on the list. It got on the list in 16 before I ever got here. Right now, part of the challenge is that, as we shared this last month, is that it's not a federally classified road. So it limits the amount of available transportation funding that's available. Now, there are multimodal funding sources that could provide some additional funding for, say, the sidewalks or bike lanes or some of those kinds of things. Are there some federal grants or programs that might be more associated towards historic preservation? I think some of those are out there. Whether this would qualify or not, I don't know. I do know that we did some research on this, and that with its current designation, which I can't remember, it's not a landmark, it's the historic places or whatever it is, we found that the majority of the funding that's available is available with that designation. We were only able to find one funding source that was specific to a landmark that this project would qualify for, and that was a one-time $750,000 maximum grant for the whole project. So we did some looking into seeing what that is. I think, are there things out there? Probably, yes. We'll see more as those come along. I don't know what those are right now, and quite possibly there might be some legislative type earmarks or things like that that might receive more attention if we get that designation.
Well, I'm wondering about putting it as a legislative priority for Olympia come January. I mean, it's not really the most beautiful project for them to want to fund necessarily, but a multimodal or all of those type of aspects, maybe there's some way to not just cannibalize the entire TBD fund, but actually be able to use some other options to try to bring in a couple $1 million, whatever. I don't know. Just, I was wondering how it actually all ended up in TBD. It's one of the only projects I've seen other than North First Street, which ended up not being all TBD, where it's all in TBD.
Many of the projects on the list that I read are all TBD. They're just, well, we'll talk about that TBD list.
Whether they're planned or funded.
Yeah, because that whole list, and I don't want to get into the next public hearing. But you'll see that all of those are funded completely with TBD. Since we're on the topic of funding, I do want to remind you that, Matt, you know what? Let's talk about this at the TBD thing. I think it's more appropriate to have that discussion then.
So the number that you put out for 6th Avenue right now includes the trolley tracks and the overhead line?
Yes, it does. That was the original scope, so that remains the original project at this time.
And if we vote that down, how much less would it?
As I presented a month ago, I think it was 7.5 or 7.5 or 7.8, somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly what it was. Yeah, it's roughly half.
And that wouldn't have anything to do with Beyond River Road up to Sela?
Correct. The project as it stands is from Walnut to River Road.
So what we end up with is if we don't finish it, it would look pretty crazy. I can remember back in the 60s when we had the overpass at 40th Avenue half done and we ran out of money and it sat there forever. And this could become the same type of situation if we don't get funding to go the rest of the way. If the trolley people don't get funding to go the rest of the way.
My understanding is right now the track from River Road North is still serviceable, minus the bridge, but that was a funded project on here.
But the overhead wiring to run the trolley is totally gone and have to be redone.
Yeah, this project does include the $2.1 million to add the catenary lines, if I said that right, lines in.
You're saying it includes it to go
The
all the way to
15.3 does. It includes the catenary lines to get the
Be
trolley
state-of-the-art
running.
over.
all the way to Sela,
Not all the way to Silo.
Well,
or just to River Road?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know the answer to that one. I should know the answer to that one, but I don't. I might know by the time I get up here again for the TBD. I'll see if I can figure that out between now and then.
The other aspect with the wire is that they were talking about the security aspect of them, being able to actually shut it off, and because they get damaged, people cut them, whatever, those type of things. And so because I know that was like another 3 million, 2 million, something like that, just for those lines. It's an interesting thing because they were talking about trying to figure out working on some security mechanism, so if the minute the line is touched or cut, that it would alert somewhere, some headquarters somewhere.
It's the same kind of technology that the power company is using with fire or people tampering with the power lines, like birds hitting it, that kind of thing that disrupts. Same kind of technology.
All right.
So that is the TIP. So
Now we gotta open it up, right?
Okay, no other comment by council? Any questions? All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing. And I have a list of persons in front of me.
Don't know which one goes to which, though.
And I don't know if you are talking about the TIP, which is what Bill just presented, or if you're talking about the TBD, which is, if you could explain, Bill, the difference between the TIP and the TBD so that people will know, much better than I can.
yeah, so both of these are just lists, essentially, just a subset of lists.
With acronyms.
So, yeah, with acronyms. So the TIP is required for inclusion. Is this thing on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For inclusion into the comp plan, as it was read, and so it is required for the federal funding and/or state funding to be on this list and provide the opportunity for a public hearing regarding each of those projects. Okay, so that's kind of what this is. The TBD that I'm going to present is really just the list and the fact that the list has changed in cost from 2023 when it was last approved. So I've got a little bit more to explain on that when I get up to present that, but it's really, the TBD is just accepting that the TBD list of project costs have changed. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I don't know that I made it any better. But
So I'm just going to go through the stack that I have here and call each person by name. So when you come forward, please identify yourself and city in which you live. The first is Joshua Hicks.
Hi, I'm Joshua Hicks. I'm a resident of the city of Yakima. I feel a bit out of my depth with everything that's going on here, but I'm just a regular citizen. I rode the tandem route with my mom and my grandma back in the day when the tandem route was still running, and then I've since ridden the Sela route with my own sons when each of them were born, and continue to ride when we have opportunity. I just think the trolley's awfully special. It's one of the very few things that makes Yakima unique. We grow more hops than anybody else, and we have one of the only interurban trolleys. So I value the things that make our community unique and different than any other place. I've lived in Seattle and LA, and I'm back here, and it's special. So I would hate to see it go away. I think it's important to sounds like there's a lot of different ways to fund it and a lot of ways to move forward if everybody's committed to preserving it. And I think, and definitely that road needs a lot of help. I drive it a fair bit, even though my kids don't go to school over there, but, you know, it's not pretty. So that's all.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Hicks,
you.
we appreciate it. Next is Patty Graff. Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Graffy, okay. Oh, there is a little I there, thank you.
Hi, I'm Patty Graffy. I am a resident of Sela, and I'm also the executive director of the Sela Downtown Association. So as a resident, I love the trolley. I'm a train enthusiast. We miss it coming into the region. For tourists and residents, it's a unique opportunity to see our region across the rivers, all the fun things that you already know. As an executive director with the Main Street organization, we are into preservation. And preservation is costly at the beginning, but if we get rid of this, it'll be way more costly because we'll never get it back. And we have buildings and infrastructure and all kinds of things. So I just want to hopefully encourage you to find a way to keep it and give the trolley group some time to find funding and get their national registration and all the things that they can, because I think that'll open a lot of doors to keep it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graffy. And we hope to have some conversation with the City of Sela, their chamber, their council, their Main Street program, in terms of how we can partner on this, so. Next is Santa Claus. I'm sorry.
Old Saint Nick.
Ho, ho, ho. I'm usually not in town this time of year, but I wanted to be here to promote and request and urge you and implore you to support the trolleys. The trolleys are a unique experience. They're a wonderful opportunity. I have had the chance to come down from the North Pole and work with the trolley for the last 4, 5, 6 years. And I'm known as the Singing Santa, and we ride, and there's nothing like seeing those bright eyes of those kids on those trolley rides. I just implore you, it's important.
You may not hold that sign up at this point.
I can't hold that sign?
Sorry.
You're on the naughty
See
list.
Santa Claus get shut down.
I'm
Is it
sorry.
political?
No, it's not political, but we don't allow signs to be held up over a certain level and not in the aisleways.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So if I sit down, I can put it on my lap.
Like the gentleman right here, yes.
Okay.
You can say what's on it, though.
Yes, you may. Say what is on your sign.
Don't throw away our history.
Thank you.
The Yakima trolleys are such a unique experience. They don't exist anywhere else in the United States. And we also have the opportunity to incorporate additional cars. We have an opportunity to have something called the Brill car, which is a large green enclosed vehicle, which can, I think, hold up to 50 people, 40, 45. This is a great tourist opportunity. We'll get people who are train enthusiasts that come specifically just to Yakima to experience this. So please, find it in your heart and look into your pocketbook and see where we can save those pennies and nickels to keep the trolleys in Yakima and supported. So just to make the point, I hope you'll come join me and ride the trolleys in November after Thanksgiving up into Christmas. So it's weekends, we have a great time, and we sing songs. So please support the trolleys.
Thank you, Mr. Claus. I have been there for Christmas. I appreciate it.
I'm going to have to tell my kids that Santa Claus was here.
Do you have any questions for me?
No.
No.
Thank you so much.
Just can you
need a funding
get the
source.
reindeer to pull the trolley? That would be.
That would take care of it.
All right, next, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time reading the first name. Eileen Kane.
Good evening. Thank you, council members. It's been quite a busy day for me. We went down to the trolley barn, and for the first time since I was injured in 2022, I was able to climb up and more impressively back down off of the trolley. And it was a joyful thing because I've missed going on the trolleys. They are just a wonderful thing to have come through the neighborhood in which I live. There's something special. It makes it so that it's not just grimness and ghetto-ness and all that. It's something beautiful. And I have been a bit out of the country. I was in Sarajevo. They have trolleys that date back a long time. And I have been in London and seen the double-decker buses, also very special, and ridden old trams in Dublin, and the trolley, not the trolleys, but the cable cars in San Francisco. When they legalized girls and women hanging off of them, I used to hang off those things going whee up and down the hills. You know, and having that made me feel less homesick when we moved up here. And it was, you know, there's a thing called morale. Armies recognize morale. That's why they put a chocolate bar, even if it's tiny, in your MRE. That's why they make sure you have coffee. Think of it as the chocolate bar and the coffee that we need in this town. And thank you, everybody. You don't have an easy job, any of you, and I appreciate you. Have a nice night.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Next is Stephen Johnson.
Hi. When I was little, I can remember coming over to Yakima in the summer to visit my grandparents and eating way too much fresh fruit. So good. And also when I was really little, riding the trolleys on really long rides out past Congdon's Orchard when the lines went much further, and then eventually that got cut back, and it got cut back along Knob Hill. And I can also remember going into Selah when it used to go further in Selah, and over to the treetop facility, and then that got cut back. And the trolleys, I mean, it's like a time capsule that was never buried, and you can go visit and experience it in person. I've also been to a museum up in Edmonton, Canada, that has their own trolleys where they've tried to recreate classic trolleys and street scenes and stuff. And also in Detroit to the Henry Ford Greenwich Village that he made, where they've tried to create old-timey stuff. And you guys have it right here. It's still original. Other cities like Tacoma and Seattle and Lake Union around Amazon, they're installing trolley tracks and putting new trolleys in where they didn't have them. And here, you guys have them. Years ago in the bus tunnels in Seattle, they had laid new tracks just in case they ever wanted future light rail, and now actually they do, and now that's what runs through those tunnels. Thank goodness they put those tracks in. Selah wants it, the Historical Society wants it. The survey showed that overwhelmingly the people want the trolleys to stay. It seems to me, if it's a matter of the cost, then maybe doing the paving project in stages would be the way to go. 6th Avenue is in between the trolley's barns and the whole line in Selah. So, you brought up, well, what would it cost to put new lines up, or what more might that cost out in Selah? But before the bridge closure, the trolley was running to Sela, and actually with the motor generator car, the trolley can run to Sela, no problem, even if the lines aren't up. But the trolley can't run to Sela if there's no tracks for it to run on. And so I just want to implore you to keep those tracks, figure out a way to keep those tracks, and maybe if the project can be done in stages so that you can keep the tracks in the street where they are, but if it's spread out over a few years, and so the trolleys can remain, I think it's a vital thing that Yakima is so lucky to have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Next is Greg Bliss.
Good evening. Thanks for having me and letting me speak. My name's Greg Bliss. I'm with the Northern Pacific Railway Museum in Toppenish. I'm here to talk about something that means a lot to all of us, especially us at the museum, and others in the surrounding community, and that's the trolleys. The trolleys aren't just old vehicles or fading remnants of the past. They're not just buildings left over from a bygone era. The Yakima trolleys and their staff are survivors. They've endured decades of hardship, fought through one major obstacle after the next, and persisted with almost no support, fueled only by the dedication of volunteers and the passion of the people who care deeply about preserving our history. The trolleys have become more than machinery. They're a symbol of what it means to fight for something worth saving. The people behind them are historians, mechanics, educators, visionaries. They believe in telling our story, and they do it with every ounce of their heart. But imagine what could happen if the city finally decided to believe in them too. Imagine expanding the trolley line to connect the farmers market, the convention center, historic downtown, creating a moving, breathing, living piece of history that also drives tourism, revenue, and civic pride. We're talking a historic trolley system that could put us on the map. That kind of vision could truly set Yakima apart and make us a major tourist destination. Destroying the trolley line to Sela to save a buck would be a short-term decision with long-term consequences. It would not only destroy a historic trolley route, it would destroy the very museum and volunteers that have fought so hard for so long to save an incredibly important piece of our history here in the Yakima Valley. What we have here is rare. It's irreplaceable. Once that history is gone, it is gone. And you can hear that from many different members of museums all over the country that have had to go through those experiences. You have been elected to this council by the people to ensure that our community is a safe, successful, and enjoyable place to call home. Part of that is preserving our history. To us at the Northern Pacific Railway Museum, the Yakima trolleys are not just another museum. These people are our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, our brothers in arms, and the continuous fight to save history from those that wish to destroy it in the name of pinching pennies. I urge you, don't let that happen. Choose to invest in something that connects our past to our future. Choose vision, choose history, choose the trolleys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Bliss.
Very well
We're
said.
going to ask that you not applaud everyone that comes up, so sorry, but we just generally don't allow that, although we appreciate everything you have to say. Next is Hans Larson.
I too rode the Yakima trolley when I was a kid, and my wife is from Ethiopia, and we live in Bothell. So when I first brought her here, we went to the Pike Place Market, we went to Mount Rainier National Park, and we also came here to ride the trolley. And I brought my 2-year-old daughter at the time, and I'd like to keep being able to do that with our other children. And it seems to me that whatever cost is required to ensure the trolley can cross 6th Avenue is a small price to pay when you consider all of the volunteer hours that that you get from everybody, that everyone who has been pouring into this historic project over the years, as well as the grant money they've been able to secure, and which will likely increase in the future if we keep this piece of history, Yakima history, and Washington State history going. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Next is Ann Knapp.
Thank you, and I have some handouts since I might not talk fast enough or long enough. So I have nothing against the trolley. I like the trolley, but I think we need to be realistic. We have a $9 million deficit. The 6th Avenue roadway is 35% of the total TBD budget. It's supported by car tabs. Sidewalk needs are 15.9% of the TBD list. Some of those sidewalk projects, Brown, Fair, 44th, and 16th, have been on the TBD list since 2017, and their costs have tripled since 2017. And I think sidewalks are needed. The city's analysis of just elementary school sidewalks show that about 34% of all miles are under sidewalked, or 236 miles without sidewalk. District 1 has 48.12% of miles, shows, yeah. You can look in my handout for what the statistics are on that. Our car tab revenue, I think, is only $1.6 million annually, and I think that's with our $20 car tabs. We're looking at doubling car tabs to $40 a year. And the city has a fund balance of $4.8 million. So TBD money is not going to fund everything we have on the TBD list. The 6th Avenue costs without the trolley are $7.5 million. Adding the trolley doubles the cost, taking 35% of the TBD needs of $43 million. It costs $2.1 million to add the catenary lines. I don't know if they're going to be effective or if they're window dressing. I don't think that the trolleys are going to be eligible for the National Historic Landmark because the integrity portion of the National Historic Landmark designation says if the resource has been more than modestly modified or has deteriorated since its period of national significance, it may meet the NR threshold for integrity, but not the higher NHL standard. So I think that the 6th Avenue roadway is too expensive when we're facing the $9 million deficit. I think the trolley is a poor investment. If we sold tickets at $20 per ride, we'd need 375,000 riders to help pay for those costs, just for the construction work. And the city's not getting any revenue from the trolley. So I think there are too many ifs, so I would suggest a hard no on trying to fund the trolley. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Knapp. Next is William Longmire.
Madam Mayor, City Council members, William Longmire. I am a Selah resident, also a Selah City Council member. Just heard about funding and TBD dollars. I agree. We shouldn't try to fund this project with just those funds. I mean, there are so many opportunities out there. I've been working with Ken from the Yakima Valley Trolley to identify different grant funding. To me, it's more about not just the trolley itself, it's about the corridor. I feel like there's this focus on just the trolley itself, but that corridor itself could potentially have a commuter trolley system, kind of like you have, like when they're building in Seattle to Bellevue. That would alleviate traffic off of, South First Street and North First Street in Yakima between our two communities. And I feel like we need to look at that bigger picture and just kind of like step back a little bit and just kind of reassess and look at what dollars are actually out there. Because there are something called State of Good Repair. Those are federal dollars, and also FTA Small Starts programs as well. One component also I want to focus on also is the William O. Douglas Trail, and why aren't those costs being broken out into the bigger picture? I was looking at some of your prior documents on your guys' website, and mainly I think it's the Yakima Urban Area Transportation Plan Update 2025, and it calls out the William O. Douglas Trail as being on Fifth Avenue, where William O. Douglas actually lived. That's where his house resides. That street actually makes more sense to me because it's, I believe it's the, it's like it's already like a bicycle route or a main walking route, and I'm just wondering at what point did that get changed to, I guess, 6th Avenue, and also that that document also calls out for that project of just the trail alone, and I think this was done back in 2006, like $4.87 million for that. Which seems like a lot of money, and I'm not sure why that piece isn't being broken out. Why aren't we talking about that? Also, putting, I guess, the trail and adding more bicycle traffic in an already congested like school zone, where you have people dropping off kids and everything. To me, that doesn't make sense. Why are you trying to add, I guess, more into such a compressed area? Especially, it just makes more sense to have the trail on Fifth Avenue. That's where it was originally, stated. If you want to look at your guys' own documents, that's where it was originally supposed to go. When I was at your meeting about a month ago, we talked about, we're trying to fit so many things into such a small area. Why are we putting, I guess, the trail in this trolley corridor, when it's so constrained? Let's think about putting it back on Fifth where it originally was supposed to go, and I guess break out those costs as well, just so it's like, so we're looking at the bigger picture and not just breaking out what the trolley costs are. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Longmire. I will tell you that we are still looking to talk to Sealy City Council and your agencies over there about how we can partner together, so thank you. Next is Moira Nadel.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is Moira Nadal, and I am speaking on behalf of the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation, where I serve as our Preservation Programs Director. I have to say, just a quick comment, that it's really touching to see so many people out on a school night testifying in City Council. That's rare in my life have I gotten to see so many people. It's very touching. No one can tell you more than your own community about how special the trolleys are. But I thought I would provide a little context, as we have recently relisted the Yakima Valley Trolleys as one of the most endangered places in Washington State, which is one of the ways that we amplify, bring attention to, and advocate for places across the state. As we know, the Yakima Valley Trolleys are most likely the last remaining electrified interurban trolley line in the United States, which is why they are eligible for listing as a National Historic Landmark. I thought it would be worth explaining what a big difference there is between being listed in the National Register and being listed as a National Historic Landmark. All of those words sound the same. My own job title is a jumble of words that sound just like the organization I work for. So to give some context, in Washington, there are more than 1,500 sites, buildings, structures listed in the National Register of Historic Places, which is a registry kept by the Department of the Interior. In Washington State, there are currently 24 National Historic Landmarks, most of which are related to the state's maritime history, which means that 22 of 24 are on the west side, and 2 are on the east side of the Cascade Mountains. I have it on decent authority that there's a very good chance that the trolleys will be listed as National Historic Landmark, making them lucky number 3 on the east side of the Cascades. What is vitally important to the question of integrity is the retention of that interurban nature. There are lots of trolley systems, there are lots of electric streetcars, including in my own hometown of New Orleans. There are other examples in the country, but what's so unique about the Yakima Valley trolleys is that connection to downtown Selah. And I understand that in a city budget, there's always more need and more opportunity than there are dollars. And you do have a very tough job ahead of you. But we at the Washington Trust hope that you will work with us and work with your community that so strongly supports retaining the trolleys to find pathways forward, a mutually agreeable future that leaves doors open so that the trolleys can stay in use and retain that connection between the 2 urbs, downtown Selah and downtown Yakima. And we would love to have any opportunities to have future conversations with you, to advocate, matchmake with potential funding sources, write letters of support, lobby in Olympia, you name it, we're here to show up. And we hope that you will consider our offer of support and work with us to bring about lucky number 3 and have more trolley rides in the future for all of us. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Nadel.
Can you find us
appreciate the support.
13 million? Okay, all right.
Get on it.
Okay, I have 2 more that are both on Zoom. So, Mr. Beeler, I'll ask you to call up Greg Johnson.
Mayor Byers, Greg Johnson indicated an interest in talking about the Transportation Benefit District.
Okay.
Our other speaker has indicated he'd like to speak about the 6-year TIP.
All right, so then I will call forward Russell Holter.
Mayor Byers, Russell Holter has been invited to be promoted to panelist. Once he does that, he'll be able to turn on his camera and his microphone. Mr. Holter, you do need to unmute your microphone.
Okay, I think I'm on.
We can hear you, Mr. Holter. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I was having a hard time hearing you. All of a sudden, it just went crazy there. My name is Russell Holter, and I don't know if you need to see me or not, but I am the president of the board president of the Pacific Northwest Railway Archive. I live in Lakewood, Washington, and for 15 years, I served with the State Historic Preservation Office in Olympia. And during that 15 years, I've literally did over tens of thousands of determinations of eligibility for National Register eligibility, which can be documented by going on to the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation's Wizard database. I wanted to talk about the acceptance of the 6-year Transportation Improvement Plan and for full funding for 6th Avenue. I just wanted to amplify those comments that were made by Moira from the Washington Trust for Historic Preservation. She kind of stole a little bit of my thunder. I was going to talk about that, but the last listing to the National Historic Landmark was in 2008, and that was the B reactor in Hanford. I have it on good authority. I have spoken with the keeper of the state register, Michael Hauser, whom I shared an office with for 15 years. He's gave us a preliminary indication that the Yakima Valley Trolley is eligible for National Historic Landmark listing. And the keeper of the National Historic Landmark in Washington, D.C., prior to the change of administration, had also indicated and gave a preliminary indication that the Yakima Valley Trolley is individually eligible as a transportation district to the National Historic Landmark. So you have the opportunity to have the third in Eastern Washington National Historic Landmark. And that would really draw a lot of attention to Yakima. It becomes an engine for tourism. And it also will cause the Yakima Trolley Museum to be able to score much higher against all those other National Register properties when it comes to funding and grant opportunities because of the super special nature. Only 2% achieve that National Historic Landmark eligibility status and listing. It was good to see my former colleague Ann Knapp. But to her point, there are other ways of being able to kind of have your cake and eat it too, especially if 6th Avenue was redesignated so that other pots of state funding could be allocated towards multimodal transportation and things like that to help to supplement the budget and maybe free up some more money for sidewalk improvements, as Ms. Knapp had pointed out. I am advocating on behalf of the Yakima Valley Trolley, and I'm hoping that the council will see the wisdom in providing full funding for the 6th Avenue Trolley project. And if you have any questions of me as a former state expert on National Historic Register properties and things like that, I'd be more than happy to answer them now.
Thank you. Questions, Council? Okay. All right. Mr. Holter, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Beeler, is there anyone else for the TIP hearing?
No, Madam Mayor, there's not.
All right. In that case, I'm going to close the public hearing. Yes, Bill.
So this isn't an additional comment, but I just do want to remind everyone that the decision before council today is just, is the project list, is the TIP list what you want to approve for our 6-year plan, right? All of this information is good and will help direct some of those other decisions that you'll be making in the future. But right now, the decision is, as presented, the TIP list that I presented to you, that's what's up for a decision by council. Just wanted to clarify that with all the other information that was being shared today.
So if we go ahead and approve that, we're basically saying that we approve.
Excuse me, I need to close the public hearing and then we can discuss it as a council. So I'm going to close the public hearing portion, unless there's anyone else that wants to speak.
Can I address the council?
You may. Please give us your name and city in which you live.
Paul Edmondson, 313 North 3rd Street. I've addressed the council previously. You may recall, I'm a past president of the Trolleys and current vice president. I just wanted to correct a couple of things that have come up. It's certainly true that the trolleys do contribute substantial revenues to the city through trolley tourism. There's no transit system in the country that can operate out of their fare box. But Yakima is an exception because we have no labor cost, and that's not insignificant. The city buses, for example, their labor cost is upwards of 80%, and we have none of that. So it's a very frugal operation we run. With respect to Councilman Glenn's inquiries about the tracks in the gap, I think it's important to realize that the wear and tear on the tracks is much different on the streets than it is in rural areas like the gap. We also have tracks in our yard, of course, for the car barn and powerhouse, some of which are stamped 1884. So it's not that you have to replace everything if you go into the gap. With respect to the catenary, the wires have been stolen, but the poles are still up. So it's not like the poles have to be replaced either. And probably the most salient thing you can say about the Yakima trolleys is that they've been operating since 1907, 118 years, which is a remarkable event. And the trolleys are well known throughout the country and beyond the country. One example of that is Edmonton was mentioned by one of the speakers. A few years back, Edmonton, Alberta, made a substantial donation to the Yakima trolleys in terms of excess surplus equipment. And so we are well known even beyond the borders of America, and we are America's last interurban. The others have all shut down, but we're still in operation. You can find static displays, but not running operations. So I just want to second the remarks of most of what has been said tonight, and I'll yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Then I'm going to close the public hearing portion, and now it's open for discussion by council. So if you have questions for Mr. Preston, he can come forward.
So the question I have at this time, if we go ahead and approve the plat as it's listed, then we are basically approving rebuilding the trolley tracks.
No. This is just this is just a list of our 6-year planned activities.
It's not how we're doing it.
It's not how we're paying for it. It tries to anticipate that. The best way to think about it is the stuff that's out 6 years, we know that's not right. It's our best guess at this time. The stuff on our 2-year list, which happens to be the 6th Avenue, is our best guess at this time. Can it change? Yes. I'm up here all the time talking about changes to this list. It can change.
Yeah.
It's not committing us to anything.
The last 4 years being on council, I think we've talked about all sorts of different lists and changed and amended lists
Yes.
upon lists.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My greatest concern personally, everybody here probably knows I'm a trolley supporter. I ride the trolley. I've created a tradition with friends and family that I reserve it for a run and the holidays and take everybody with me. It's just been great fun. But the most important thing to me is the historical value, since the early 1900s, over 100 years. If we don't move forward, this will be the death knell for the trolley. We will lose that history and the opportunity to purport it for not only our city, but for economic development, which will come in the future when the trolley goes all the way to Selah, which I firmly believe that it will. I just think it's very important to us as a city that we do have issues we're looking at right now in terms of where we're spending money. It doesn't have to be right away on the trolley. We can keep it on the list and continue to work forward and find ways for funding. I know that the trolley organization is like 4 years into a 5-year process of obtaining a historic national landmark, which is very significant, much more than just a registered thing. That in itself will draw tourists into Yakima because there are tourist families, groups that come across the United States and even from overseas to visit those things. So I think as it progresses forward and just becomes more well-known, established that this is what we're going to do, I think it will be a long-term benefit to our community versus giving it away right now and cutting it off and then having no future in it. To me, it's just critically important to who we are as a city.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it needs to be done in parts, and if we can find other ways to pay for it, so much the better. I think we have to do that.
Speaking on the tip list, because that's where we're at, is this puts it into that list that's able for then looking at state dollars, federal, it's all through COG and different things like that, right? It's part of that process. So it makes it like a little bit bigger pot on certain things, correct? Ish.
No.
Okay, cool.
It's
Is it more of a plan list?
it's this project particularly is of local regional significance, which is why it's on the list, not for its funding requirements. If additional funding comes to us, then it would have to be put on the list if it wasn't. And so we're just out in front of it, right? So this gives me, it speeds that process up if some of those other funding sources become available.
That's what I kind of meant, but yes.
You got it right then.
Yeah. Didn't explain it well.
There were two things that came up. So you had asked about the catenary lines. So I do want to say that I figured out the answer. And unfortunately, it is only the project limits itself, so it isn't on each side. But as somebody mentioned earlier, some of those other lines are still in place, so that may not be a problem. But it is, the 2.1 is just for the project limits. I also want to touch on real quick the stages conversation. So can we do it in stages? The answer is yes, we can definitely do it in stages. I would like to point out, though, that when you do it in stages, that means there's a very high likelihood that the trolley will be down once those tracks get tore up for each stage. So if it's 2 years per stage, we're talking 6 years that it's going to be down, as opposed to the 2 that if we did it all at once.
I do have a
This is a
question.
problem.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a very real problem.
I think Mr. Longmire brought this up, and I had this thought in my mind as well. I didn't know how to differentiate between the cost of the trolley or the cost of doing the William O. Douglas pathway there as well, particularly because the pathway had originally been along Fifth Avenue. Can you give us any?
So we rely on the William O. Douglas Trail Foundation to tell us where the path is. So I'm not familiar with exactly what Mr. Longmire was talking about there, but what I would say is standalone projects are always going to cost more than combined projects. So I'm interpreting or assuming, which I know is dangerous, that the project that was referred to most likely was a standalone project that may or may not even included this area. It could have been some of the other missing segments of the trail throughout either our city or outside the city. As far as the reason it's not broken out dollar-wise as part of this project is we touched on it during the presentation a month ago, and that is there's a strong likelihood that it would be integrated into the existing roadside elements that we would be constructing. So a sidewalk that, the standard sidewalk would be 7 feet, but if we wanted to make it 10 feet for the William O. Douglas Trail, that's an insignificant amount of cost when we're talking about tens of millions of dollars, right? And so it's as we currently envision it, its integration in there is a very minor dollar amount compared to some of the other elements that I shared with you, and so it doesn't need to be broken out for that reason.
So having heard that, in all good faith, first of all, I love the William O. Douglas Trail idea as well. It's just as significant in terms of history of our city. I want to see them both move forward, but I would encourage the supporters of the William O. Douglas Trail to kind of come alongside the trolley and see what they can do to help.
So if we wanted to move this back down a little bit and give time for more stuff to happen, we could just move it down on the list and then leave it for a future time and do other projects first?
So the TBD list can be done kind of in any order. It's not prioritized. I've talked about how I prioritize projects here. It was chosen because of its significance to the list. It's a very important project to the list. Making these improvements are important. I also talked about how bad the road is, right? A bad road, is that better than no sidewalk? Somebody's got to make that decision, right? Because many of those locations on that list have no sidewalk. So, yes, council could direct me to move the project down on the list, i.e. not move forward with it. Still remains that it's on the list, isn't going to get any cheaper to repair the road, nor is it going to get any cheaper to repair the trolley tracks. However, it does possibly give some time to find some additional funding. I think there's some other discussions regarding how to make that happen, and whether or not we want to move it up or down. But that is an option.
We don't even have, I mean, the TBD only brings in 1.7 million every year. So what's in there? 3?
4.8, as somebody mentioned, Ann, I believe, mentioned it's 4.8. I was going to get into the funding pieces a little bit during the TBD discussion, since it's more relevant to that.
So at this point, we're not making a decision whether it will be included or not. We're just doing the TBD list.
The
TIP.
Just to keep it in the active list.
It's confusing because there's 2 lists tonight.
Exactly.
We have a whole
It
other
is.
hearing after this, so I think we can make a motion to move. So I would move to adopt both resolutions.
I second.
So we have a motion by Deputy Mayor Brown, a second by Councilman DCO to adopt both resolutions. Would you read them, please?
The first resolution is a resolution adopting the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, TIP, for the period of 2026 through 2031 for transportation improvements to arterial streets in the city of Yakima and amending the Transportation Systems Plan 2040. The second resolution is a resolution to amend the Yakima Urban Area Comprehensive Plan Capital Facilities element to incorporate the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, TIP, for the period of 2026 through 2031.
Okay. So we will need a roll call vote, please.
Brown?
Yes.
Byers?
Yes.
DCO?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Herrera?
Yes.
Roy?
Yes.
Berg?
No.
All right, so the motion is 6-1. It passes and the resolution is adopted. Thank you.
And we're on to the next hearing.
And we are on to the next public hearing. Okay. This is a public hearing relating to the Transportation Benefit District, the TBD, modifying transportation list to be funded by the district. And again, Mr. Bill Preston, our Community Development Director, is going to talk to council.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, so this ordinance is to modify or update the list from the last list that was presented back in 2023. The costs have all been updated. That is the modification. So we can talk about a lot of things here tonight to continue as far as the public hearing, and even have some other discussions regarding various projects on the TBD list. However, the only decision tonight before council is that the list is adopted with the updated costs. Unfortunately, if I'd have done this a little bit better, we could have talked some more about and maybe had a possibility of finding funding decisions and things like that, but we can't make any of those decisions tonight. So I will be back before you again to talk more about the TBD list, so we'll get another opportunity to hear from the community. So with that said, this list, as I presented a month ago, has been updated. We had Gray and Osborne go through all these scopes and update the projects. I added the completed projects, the ones that we finished, and then we updated all to the current scoped estimates. The scopes remain the same, so that means 6th Avenue, which is on this list, remains at the 15.3 because that is how the project was. So we're not making any decisions tonight on material changes, i.e. scope, schedule, and budget. However, we're just accepting the list with the costs. We will come back before you to talk about how to do that.
All right, thank you.
Sorry.
I'm going to open the public hearing first and then we can discuss after.
Okay, fine.
So I will open the public hearing portion. Do we have anyone this evening that wishes to address the council about the TBD list?
Tony Corsi again. Madam Mayor, you made the choice for me without asking on what I'm speaking on. Understand this, my decisions also are being made by myself and a couple other people on the city of Sela and Yakima. I have 50% water right claim in
Mr.
Yakima,
Corsi,
but
you need to address the issue at hand, which is the TBD list. That's what
the
the public
list,
hearing is for.
the money that came in for the sidewalk and for the crosswalks was not just for one certain area, understand that, and the money that came in that you guys have kept and moved around and changed the list, 16th and Fruitville was the designated circle area where the money's supposed to be spent. You look in and do the research, you were there, Madam Mayor, and the stands there wearing the 34 shirt.
Thank you, Mr. Corsi.
You're welcome again. History.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the council this evening about this? Mr. Beeler, is there anyone online who wishes to address the council in this public hearing?
Yes, Mayor Byers. Greg Johnson
Wonderful.
has been invited to be promoted to a panelist. He is there now and can turn on his microphone.
Thank you.
Hi, Honorable Mayor and members of the council, city manager, and city staff. Every time they've been asked to, without fail, the people have spoken out on this project. Through the buzz of the packed gymnasium at Garfield Elementary last fall, through over 700 responses to a city survey, 92% of which favored design options preserving the trolley, through the energy in the council chambers and numerous comments on May 13th, through thousands of likes, comments, and posts on social media, again tonight, and it sounds like we might be back again another time. I think the message is very clear that it's the will of the people for Yakima to continue to invest in and preserve the trolley. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to work together to try to make that happen. The trolleys are truly one of the things that make Yakima unique, along with world-class agriculture, recreation, the Yakima Nation traditions, and the colorful people that continue to make Yakima an interesting place to live. So I hope that we can work together to continue to fight for the things that make Yakima special. I did want to also address a couple factual things that came up earlier in the conversation tonight. First of all, with respect to the track that's north of the designated bounds of this project, as Mr. Edmondson noted, that track is not in the city street, so it's much easier and much less expensive to maintain and continues to be in pretty good condition at this time. It actually, if you drive out there and look, the track veers off to the side of the street at River Road, so pretty much everything north of River Road is not in pavement and consequently much cheaper to maintain. So I think that overall, we can collaborate together to find a strategy to fund this project. I agree that it shouldn't be fully funded by the TBD funds. That would be a waste of resources when there are so many grant opportunities available for this type of project. The project involves safe routes to school, street improvements, truck and industrial traffic, trails, historic preservation, rail transit, and a lot of other things that can open it up to funding. So I hope that we can work together to explore all those opportunities. Thanks.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And I just wanted to add that one of the other unique designations of Yakima is we're the Palm Springs of Washington. I have friends that live in Palm Springs who have told me there's actually a sign down there that claims that they are the Yakima of California. Okay. Thank you. All right. If there's no other comments, I will close the public hearing. Now it's open for discussion by council, and Mr. President, if you'll come forward to answer questions.
Bill, question for you. Been here all night. I know this list is not necessarily prioritized in any manner currently. It's how you find funding and get things done, correct? So I had a long conversation, the mayor and I did with the trolleys about this program. I guess for me, as I'm talking to the council with this, is that there's so many projects on the TBD and there's so many projects on the TIP. There's all these different projects, and all night we've talked about one project, one project on this list, and I understand that it's a very important project, but there is also very important projects that are all on this list as well, that matter to a lot of people as well. The number one complaint I get from citizens in our community is how terrible our roads are all across the entire city. And so I would like us, I mean, I don't have a problem with keeping any of these projects on this list, obviously. But I would like us to try to say, like, look, it's on this list so that you guys can go out and get your national landmark status, get that done. But I want to try to not cannibalize $15 million out of TBD for this project. I want to try to focus on low-hanging fruit and try to get these other things knocked out. That would be my personal preference on a priority level, is to try to shift our priority a little bit and try to get all these other things done. Not saying not to have this on the list, but just that a 15 million, I mean, I'm going to take North First Street as another example. Another, what was it, $20 million project?
14 and a half.
Yeah. Another huge project, another project that people are very going, why did you spend all of that money on North First Street? There's a multitude of reasons why that money was spent on North First Street. However, when people are seeing streets around their community or no sidewalks, I know districts 1 and 2 have horrible sidewalks. I've walked them. I'm like, those are priorities when people see those things more so. And that's kind of where, if I could prioritize these TBD lists, is I would really want to try to hone in on the money that we do have to try to get those things done.
I'm going to agree with Deputy Mayor Brown in that what I hear most about are streets and sidewalks, and I know there are areas in our city, particularly around schools, where they need safe crossings and sidewalks, and I know in districts 1 and 2 there's a great need for sidewalk, and I think it could create some really goodwill and support from the people in our community when they see those kinds of positive changes being made, using the money to do those things right now while we allow time, for the trolley organization to do what they need to do to get funding and just move forward.
I agree. I think that we have to be fiscally responsible with the taxpayers' money, and while all of them are important, I think that we need to prioritize a little bit, and not spend it all in one big jump.
So just to the reason I picked it was because we were able to save the money on North First, and I didn't have it, and it provided the 4.8 million starter that I wouldn't have otherwise had, and I won't otherwise have, right? Because when this project comes up, and I don't have any problem, I'm here to do as council directs. When this project comes up again, trolley tracks in or not, we're going to be in a situation where we won't have the TBD. If I spend, $1.7 million a year, when it comes up, I won't have any way to start, and we will be having to look at other ways to fund the project, right? Which I don't know how that will be. Of course, council can also remove it from the TBD list if they choose to.
Well, I think it would give us some time to find some of those sources of funds. I think we need to try.
I also think that when the landmark status happens,
Yeah.
it's whenever that happens. It's the longest
Do we
process ever.
Do we know when it'll happen? Or
for those guys as
the
well.
idea?
I think within the next 12 months.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that'll open up different possibilities for something with at least the trolleys costs of the app. It's not going to necessarily take care of the transportation, the road and some of those things, but perhaps helping with tracks or the lines or, which are millions of dollars as well. Right. So, yeah.
The other part of the argument, though, is you've already spent a lot of money putting that budget together and the whole plan, and if we don't do it now, if we don't make a decision now, all that money's basically wasted.
Not necessarily. So the only money that we have spent right now is to bring us to this point, right? All of that public involvement, all of this, interest that we've generated in the project, you could argue that that's money well spent, right? That you now understand and have real concrete evidence of how the community feels about the project. So I think, and I think it's only a couple $100,000, which is a lot, but it's not in a $15 million project, right? So pushing pause is an option. I think when we talk about the funding, the next public hearing that I bring forth, which I didn't know I had to do, but now I do, we'll be able to go into that a little bit more directly and then get some more specific guidance and direct guidance from council.
Would it be helpful if we prioritize these for you?
No.
I will be
We're the
politically
experts.
I will be politically correct. No.
I just thought I had to ask.
Yeah, and I thank you.
Well, the other thing that concerns me a little bit is we're talking about an interurban trolley that isn't really right now an interurban trolley. And does that make a difference? Is it going to get approved when it's not a functional
But it will.
interurban trolley?
It will be.
It will be.
Well, so if that's it, I need to remind council that there still is the diamond, right? And there are no funds in the budget anywhere for fixing the diamond. So if the requirement that it be functioning, we have to fix the diamond, right? And that's 150, 200 grand by the time that's going to be replaced. So that needs to be addressed by council as well. If, we push pause.
Do we have any kind of public funding that might happen with, besides taxpayers' money, but maybe donations of some sort that could help with, like, if the diamond, save the diamond or fix the diamond?
The city has proven that it's good at accepting donations. Just look at the pool, right? So if somebody wants to, walk in and hand you a $200,000 check, we'll take it, right? And we'll fix it.
It could be a good campaign.
Right.
Save the diamond.
One of the
Well, having talked to the people involved with the trolley, they are talking about doing some fundraising just for that as an initial project. So I think
We got
that'd
Joe
be
Mann
helpful.
in the back. Maybe you can write
Yeah.
a check for us, Joe.
There you go, Joe. But yes, the trolley will accept donations toward this, and so will the city.
I think at the end of the day, we're looking at a multi-million-dollar tourist attraction that I don't know that we can really justify, and it's probably better to make the hard decision now than put it off.
My only problem with it's not a problem making it now. It's the problem of the other aspects of money that can possibly. It's on a list. There's so many things on this list that haven't seen the light of day. That when I first got on council, it was larger. There was a lot of things on the list, but I just say I think leaving it on the list is not a bad thing. It at least is on there. I would say if we have 4.8 million in there, I would rather start trying to get some of these other low-hanging fruit done, personally.
But we're
So
not making
pushing
that decision
pause.
tonight. Right?
No, it's just the list.
Yeah,
Just
you're
the
just
list.
accepting the list with the updated costs, which is really what that decision that you just talked about will be made at the next time.
Right.
How much difference was the cost from the last list?
Oh gosh, what did we say? It added 15 million. So what I want and part of that was because the original 2016 list was just. I have no records of how it was done, and there were nice round $300,000 numbers, right? It just didn't mean. And then when I got here in 20, it hadn't been updated at all. So then I was just throwing the inflation rate on it. So I hadn't had it rescoped. So I was just trying my best to get something more realistic in front of you, and then, so in 23, that was where we were at. Now I said, you know what, I'm going to take the time because I've got to put something in you that's more, or in front of you that's more realistic. And so this is how it got rescoped.
$44 million. 43, sorry.
And the only project that's been added to the list is the 3rd and Division signal. So when you said there's all the kinds of things on the list, this is the exact same list.
No,
that's been
I'm just
around.
confusing tip list and this list.
Yes, and that might be, what I did do is I included the completed projects. So we have knocked a few of these off.
The 3rd Division is done, right?
3rd and Division, there's still a little bit to go, but yeah, it's essentially done.
Yeah.
It'll be done this year.
The
The light up.
the one thing I'm not, and maybe it's on here, I just don't know the term, the name of what it is, but on 40th going down the hill, the alert system.
On Walnut.
Chestnut?
Oh, Chestnut, yes. that's-
Yeah. Is that on here?
That's not on here, but actually that's moving along in a different funding source. That's one of my other magic things that I do,
Okay,
right?
all right.
You know,
I just saw like a
I
bunch
can only
of-
do so much magic with this list, but some of the other stuff I have more tricks
Flexibility?
up my sleeve. I don't know however you want to look at it.
You're a wizard, you know. Cool.
Do we have a motion from council?
Yeah.
I'll move to pass the ordinance.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilman Decio and a second by Deputy Mayor Brown to pass the ordinance. Would you read the ordinance, please? Should have done that
So
first.
this is the ordinance for item 9A. Okay. This is an ordinance of the City of Yakima, Washington, relating to a transportation benefit district, updating project costs for the transportation improvements to be funded by the district.
Then we'll need a roll call vote, please.
Byers,
Yes.
Decio,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Herrera,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes.
Berg,
Nope.
Brown.
Yep.
So the vote is 6-1, motion passes and ordinance is passed. Thank you, council. There's been a lot of work tonight and we have more to go, so thank you for hanging in. At this point, I am going to ask Gina Hernandez and Angie Gerard to come back up. If they
they're
are here.
still here.
If they are still. Well, okay.
Oh, no, there they are.
Did they bring pizza?
We know everything we ever wanted to know about trolleys.
Well, thank you for hanging in and hanging out.
But no pizza.
Greetings again. On to slide 4, dealing with our framework. As you can see, the current budget allocations in there. Our approach to addressing the budget deficit is both revenue generation and budget cuts that will do the best we can at maintaining essential services as well as continuing many of the programs and the services our community values. We know specifically a lot about those values because of the outreach that your city manager orchestrated through both the survey and the public questionnaires, the public opportunities to speak. We also want to maintain the current budget allowances that you see here in the allocations.
Excuse me for just 1 second. Could we have some quiet in the room, please? Could you take your conversations out to the lobby?
Without making changes, the police and fire budgets could soon eclipse 70% or even more of the general budget, eroding all other city services. It was clear from both the public budget survey and the presentations the Yakima residents put forth that they want to maintain both public safety and the current amenities. So that's what we're asking for with these funding sources. A budget cut-only approach is an option, though it would necessitate a 12 to 15% cut in both police and fire with proportional cuts in all other departments in order to reach the $9 to $10 million deficit on the 2026 balance sheet. Such proposed cuts would still maintain police and fire's percentage of the whole budget at approximately 40 and 20% respectively. But that's not what we're recommending. Moving on, too fast. Our revenue recommendations have a public safety sales tax. And I have the reservation that if we ask for a councilmatic sales tax, which you would just decide on yourselves to impose at 0.1%, that's a $2.7 million revenue generation. And then when we go back this fall and we're asking voters to vote on the public safety levy and the parks levy, it looks like we're asking for more. We're not. We're asking for the sales tax because it is a discretionary tax. It's not one you have to pay on your home. It's also one that we're going to collect from any tourism, any visitors to the area, that kind of thing. So that's the reason for having the recommendation of the sales tax. in addition to the 2 levies. It doesn't differ dramatically from what your staff offered. Your staff suggested the public safety levy was
5.4.
5.4, which is going to be double, or, the 2 of those together. The public safety would be all in one in the way they're suggesting it. We've split it up, again, because of the discretionary tax option, but also because it would start ideally generating revenue promptly. But we need to give that the caveat that would be based upon the cost-benefit analysis provided by your police chief when those details come out. We do not yet know what the requirements are to get that sales tax, and there's a lot of that won't be necessary or won't be known just yet. We would ask for council tonight to vote in favor of this public safety tax, again, at the cost-benefit analysis discretion of your police chief. You cannot vote for it legally tonight, carrying it forward. It is July 25th, I believe, before we can possibly vote on that, before it becomes available to you to vote on that, whatever that is in the near future. Your vote tonight would let us know as a committee what we're doing going forward. It would let us know what we're looking at bringing back to you as far as additional cuts that would tally this up, because this doesn't cover the full deficit amount, even at what's projected. So we would ask for you to vote that you will, in fact, vote for when that comes in, again, at the discretion of your police chief. But those are our recommendations. We don't want to tax anybody more than we have to. We did not want to tax at all. Some of us coming into this committee, there just simply is not an option. We went through this budget every which way from Sunday and then went back around again. We brought your staff in time and time again from 100 different angles to look at it. We absolutely have to increase the revenue. We have additional mandates from the state that cost the city money, besides the fact that we just haven't kept up with the cost of inflation. 2001, I believe it was, that Tim Iman's bill came in, Initiative 747, that said you can only do the 1%, the ad hoc tax that you do on a yearly basis. Prior to that, it was up to 6%. And the average appeared to be between 3 and 5% that every city did on a yearly basis. So your income was going up at a regular interval prior to that. We have been playing catch up and been behind the 8 ball since that 2001. And I believe Mr. Iman himself said that it was not intended to ever keep your income at that level, but to put it in front of the voters so the voters could decide where the money came from and where it was going. And that's what we're asking you to do.
Thank you.
Let me check and see if I'm missing anything else here. I think I got it. Frankly, if you really look at the numbers, which y'all know I've been doing for a few years now, and a few city managers and interim city managers along the way, to do anything less than ask the residents of Yakima to pay for the things that we have in front of them, the public service and those quality of life issues, those things that also bring economic development into the area. To do anything less, I believe, would absolutely be irresponsible. And
the only other thing I want to add is, as a committee, we do have a lot of other things that are other recommendations and ideas about revenue, but they're still in flux because we felt that it's obvious these things have to be decided first. There's timeframes to consider if things are going to go on the ballot. So we wanted to get that out there first, and then as a committee meet again once you've made those decisions, and that'll kind of alter our recommendations moving forward.
What were some of the other recommendations you guys talked about?
Well, CPI, some in regard to fees, and some other smaller revenue generating ideas.
as well as some additional cuts, because as I said, this is not going to take care of everything. At the same time, if you're not going to put a public safety levy in front of the public, if you're not going to vote for the public safety tax or, a combination thereof, something along that line, then what we're looking at for cuts is going to be a whole different kettle of fish than what's here. So if we can have from you that vote for the sales tax at the discretion this evening, that helps us know what we're doing going forward. If you're just doing levies on both ends, we'd like to know that too. But time is of the essence as far as these levies are concerned, and so we wanted to make sure and bring you a unanimous vote from us that we need to increase revenue from all polar spectrums.
One thing that concerns me a little bit is the projections on sales tax already are significantly lower. I'm thinking by the end of the year, it's very possible that it might be 10 or 12 million in new taxes that we're going to need instead of 9 just to make the budget match. And how do we deal with that?
And that's definitely something that we've considered and discussed quite a bit too. No, it is. This is just going to stop the bleeding and make sure that we're on a solid financial footing, generally speaking, best we can anticipate. It is not going to add services. We're asking folks to pay for a public service levy, and we're not adding officers. We're really sorry. It's kind of a shot across the bow to the collective bargaining units, if I may, because we have cut every other city department again and again since I've been here. I don't want to cut police. I don't want to cut fire. But I'm hoping that they're going to help us put these levies forth and help the public understand what's necessary. I do understand that that's what we're looking at, but we're also very hopeful and very focused on the economic development aspect of things as well. As a budget advisory committee, we don't want to be missing any of those things if we possibly can. And heaven knows there's enough of us battling it from different directions that we're considering a lot of things from a lot of angles.
I want to just say thank you for serving on this committee. It's not we've sat through, I feel like, hundreds of hours of sitting through budget meetings, and I'm sure you guys have spent a fair amount of hours yourself. And so I want to say thank you for that, because it's not an easy deal at all.
Yeah. Well, we asked people in the community to step forward, and you have done that when we requested. Very grateful for that, for your time.
Well, we're definitely advocates for the city. More so now than ever before, learning what, the opportunity we've had to learn from each one of the departments and really understand the budget. I think we can be great advocates in our own small communities.
Thank you for that.
So those who would like to talk to the budget committee, we are not city staff and we are not electeds. I think there's some aspects they can ask us that they can't ask others, but I wouldn't want to be electioneering. Thank you, folks.
Thank you very much.
you.
We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Okay.
So I'm not sure about how taking a vote necessarily on something, but I think
We can't do an actual vote tonight to take any action on this, so we can voice an opinion.
Yeah.
I actually, I like the recommendations. I think it's a smart way to do it.
I gather my thoughts. The sales tax option is something that I brought up again last week and needed to know. You guys actually put out where my brain was thinking anyways, and so I was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, let's lower these things, and so that was positive. I guess my biggest issue with the levies, not the sales tax, but the levies aspect, is that I feel like we're trying to nickel and dime to the place of where we're still going to have to make, $2 million of cuts or whatever that number is. And I'm concerned with going into 26, 27, or even going into 27, 28's budget cycle going, we're still $3, $4, $5 million short going into that after we just asked the voters for something. Because I'm going to tell you, like, the property tax levies have been the most vocal I've heard my district adamantly no on these things. And I said, well, what about if I just gave it to you guys to figure it out? You vote on it. Yeah, and it will be no. And I was like, wow, okay. And they understand the cuts in those aspects, but people are really, costs have gone up so drastically. Just in my own personal life, my mortgage is going up $300 this next month because of property tax, and I'm going.
Or insurance.
And insurance, but
That's what mine
property tax and insurance, and I'm going, and that's at that level, and I'm going, man, there's just so many people. I ran some numbers for one of my buddies that lives out in West Valley area in my district. and it was about a $40 to $50 a month increase on his assessed value, which is a lot higher than someone else, right? And so, anyways, I just say that because I'm like, I still really struggle with the property tax aspect. Now, again, I'm always about sending stuff to voters and letting them determine what it is. I'm not saying I'm not, but it's a real struggle. People are having a very hard time, especially in our community. Washington State is now ranked in the top 5 for the most expensive to live. Number for a family with 2 kids, they're now saying you need an average income of about $240,000 to survive in Washington State. I'm like, well, that's like, that prices everyone out of Yakima. So anyways, I think we're trying to live in a weird reality in this state of trying to also figure out how to manage it on our own city level. And this is not a tough, it's a tough decision, but it's a very, I just really feel for our community of trying to figure out how to, well, okay, the city just needs this one extra thing. Well, that's going to mean, my kid going to soccer or not, or going to a summer camp with my, that's the perspective that I'm trying to really hone in on for everyone. It's like, yeah, it's not just $20 a month. It's that $20 a month is now equating to someone else not being able to do something for their kid. That's, or at a, some of our retirees that are getting priced out of their homes. That's a big problem. So anyways, that's the full perspective.
Councilman DCO.
But it also, you have to take into account that public safety is important and the quality of life that comes with that. If you don't have that, then nobody wants to go to a soccer game because it's too dangerous to go. You have to have the infrastructure and everything in place before you have all the goodies that come with life in Yakima. Yeah. And I think giving it to the voters to decide on is the right way to go.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments by council?
One of the things that kind of bothers me is Olympia has been very aggressive at increasing revenue. We haven't seen all of the tax increases that they passed this year, and they do a lot of things that increase the cost of doing business. We just recently got word that the caseloads are going to be significantly reduced for prosecutors, which will mean that our justice system will have...
You turned your mic off, right?
Our justice system will have a huge cost increase in doing business. I see Del Monte deciding to shut down, and it's not necessarily just state government, but there's a lot of businesses. We've got a lot of financial stress in this community, and there comes a time when you have to kind of push back a little bit and say, we just can't afford to keep going. I've had a conversation with a police officer not too long ago, and I'd been complaining because I thought we had a drug dealer and couldn't get anybody to do anything about it, and he kind of explained how the whole situation works. The police know who the criminals are. They know who the gang members are, but the way that our justice system is functioning right now, it is so expensive to even use it that it's cost prohibitive, and even at that, the opportunity to get any real justice is almost nothing. The people that I talk to all the time complain that, you just don't get justice. It's too expensive, and it's really a shame. That murder that happened up in, what was it, Wenatchee or wherever, that they said they spent $3 million looking for the criminal, and it's like, it's just too expensive. We've got to find ways to operate our community on less money, and we've got to find ways to operate our state on less money. And I think we've got to start thinking about ways as a city that we can make our voice heard in Olympia and say, guys, we cannot keep doing business as usual. You can't just raise taxes and move on. We've got to find some other solutions to keep costs down in some way or fashion.
So I'm going to share a few thoughts. One is that I agree with you, but we're not Olympia. And we're not making the decisions, although we can do that with our vote as well as anything else, but we have no control of what they have done right now. The fact is that the cost of everything, including the cost of the city to provide services, has gone up. We experience the same inflation
Everywhere.
that everyone else does. And so we need to consider that. And I know that the history of the voting for raising, a levy lift on property tax in Yakima has been dismal. But I think that it's been dismal, but not fully discussed, not fully recognized the need for a long period of time. And this council has worked very hard in the last 2 years to be transparent, to change the type of budgeting we're doing, to help us and staff and our citizens to understand exactly financially where we're at. We needed a much clearer picture. Well, now we have it. We don't like the results of it either. I don't like the results of it. I don't like taxes. I don't want my property tax to go up. But I want the services that my city is going to provide me in public safety and in quality of life. So we have to do something. We cannot do nothing. And so we have to be wise in making decisions that are not based on our personal desire, but based on overall what is in the best interest of our community and our city. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm willing to look at everything that our staff has recommended. I'm willing to look at everything that the budget committee has looked at. And we have a serious task ahead of us as a council in making decisions on how we're going to do this. So that's all I have to say.
My, I guess, phone has been kind of blowing up with this levy thing, and District 7 they're not pleased with this proposal. I think you said it, May 6th, Rick, like 52% of Yakima's income, half of it goes to housing. Is that roughly right? And they've been echoing kind of that sentiment. I mean, a lot of the age is a little older out there, and all the retirees are concerned with, kind of Matt touched on it, getting priced out of their house. So just an update from my district is it's not looking good as far as levies go. 1984 was the last one we passed here. I doubt there will be an epiphany in the next 6 months. But I just want to kind of give you the pulse of West Valley out there.
I will say that, at our district meeting, I heard a mixed group, a lot more acceptance of the fact that we may have to take a drastic measure. And, District 3 is kind of right in the middle of the city. It's not one or the other. And District 4, right? We're right in the middle. And so, we're not one way or the other in terms of sociological issues or other things. So we got some good feedback. And actually, a lot of people said they would consider a levy. Others said, if we don't do that, are you as a council willing to make the difficult decision of cuts? And we said, those who said that, I said, yes, we are. But I think it needs to be a combination of both. We can't go one way or the other. We have to generate income. We need to generate income. And what more fair way than to ask our citizens, the people of our community, if they are willing to do that, to receive the services and quality of life issues that they want. It's not like we're making a decision to do that. We're simply asking them, as our community, what do you want to do here? What are you willing to do here? And I think that's the critical piece, is putting it in front of the voters. I talked to a group last night that is traditionally very conservative. And after I explained to them the process the city has gone through, what we've discovered, where we're at, what the possibilities are, I was amazed at the number of people who said, wow, we might change our thinking on this. We might actually look at supporting, a levy because of the necessity of the city for services to everybody.
I've had very few people, I haven't had anyone say that they would be against a levy. I think it's really important that we are really educating the public about what's going to happen if we do go to that, because they need to know what they're voting for and how it can help them and the city and the future of the city, and what would happen if it didn't pass.
I think the hard thing with the levy is, like, typically when you pass like a public or a levy of any kind, you're we're going to get a new fire station. We're going to do something cool. This is why we're doing this. This is real nice and fancy, and this is why you do these things. This is like, no, this is just so we can pay our bills. And I think for me, that's the biggest struggle with this, is because people at home are going, okay, cool. No one came to help me pay my bills. I had to take on another job. I had to take another job. My wife had to take another job. You know what I'm saying? Like, people had to jump through different hoops to try to make their income match over this last 4 years of horrible inflation. They've had to do those things, or they've had to cut well, we're not going to this. We're not going to coffee. We're not doing, we're not making these decisions. When I was talking to this gentleman in my district, he said, we've had to make all those decisions. We've had to make all those cuts. And now you're asking us to give you more money so that you don't have to make all those cuts. And I was like, well, we have made cuts. Yeah, but not $9 million worth of cuts. I said, Matt, I've had to make 20 to 30% cuts in our family's budget just so we can survive, that have been drastic cuts. And I think that's a really different perspective when we talk about trying to fund. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to cut officers, and I don't want to cut firefighters. I don't want to shut a station or do any of those things. But the perspective of in this room compared to that room out in the public is a much different reality at times. It's just $20. I hate saying those things because it's not just $20. So anyways, sales tax, I'm not against. I would like to see all the strings attached to the sales tax aspect, but the public, the levies aspect, I mean, again, I'm not against sending it to the voters to determine this. So.
I just have heard different feedback from other people than what you've heard. And it's interesting to me that when faced with the reality, the people that responded to the survey realized what it would mean if we didn't do this. The percentage of people said they would support the levy went up from 43% to 57%. So I think we do have a public who's paying attention and who is interested. Yes, it is going to cost something. It'll cost even us something. It'll cost everybody. We're not making a decision, but I'd like for the public to have the opportunity to make that decision for themselves on whether or not they would support that. And if they don't, then we will make the cuts because we will have to. And then all of us will live with the consequences of that. So.
I do find my sentiments, I look at the adult sports programs and the community centers and the Lions pool and the Franklin pool, and I'm thinking, yeah, those are all important parts of the community of Yakima, and I don't want to have those things go away. I want to find a way to keep them. And so, yeah, we got some hard choices to make, but at the same time, the reason that we have a community government is to serve our community, and everything that we can do to serve our community, we need to keep doing.
Oh, any other comments
Where are we
by
at?
council?
What's our agenda
I
item?
think we're almost done.
I think we are almost done. Council have any other comments? All right, then if not, we come down to our city manager update. Do you have any updates?
Well, we still have the item C we haven't covered yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
So
Well,
I'll have Craig Warner come up to
Please.
show you some information that's a follow-up from last week's meeting.
We did.
We thought we were done.
We expect miracles, by the way.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you, City Council. Let me get to the slideshow. Okay. Give me just a second.
That wasn't in our packet, was it?
It's printed somewhere.
Well, we have this.
Oh, that one, okay, got it.
I don't know if that's it or not.
It is it, thank you.
Well, I did have it.
Okay. Work. Okay. So last week when we met, you had some questions, so we wanted to come back and kind of start there first and kind of give you some of that information. And the first one was about the 10th of a cent sales tax for criminal justice. It generates about $2.7 million, as we mentioned. And this is, as we mentioned, it's very new. This was just passed in the last legislative session at the state level. And one of the big things was really about what does criminal justice purposes, what does it allow? So what we tried to do was we went through this list and we've put it there. It allows substantially to assist the criminal justice system. It may also benefit civil justice or behavioral health systems, and it specifically includes the following programs or efforts. So domestic violence, adequate public defense, which I think somebody mentioned is something that we've definitely, with the Supreme Court ruling here in the last 10 days, is going to impact the city of Yakima. The diversion programs, the reentry work for inmate programs, local government programs aimed at reducing justice systems interactions, such as homelessness reduction and behavioral health. That's an option to use that money. Community outreach, and again, this would be for co-responder models like for fire, EMS, behavioral health, professional services, that kind of thing. What's not allowed, which we had when we looked at our list of what we considered public safety last week, which was just under just at about 5.5 million, is the snow and ice removal. You can't use it for that. It is not allowed for fire suppression. It's not allowed for routine EMS not tied to mental health or behavioral response, hazmat or rescue operations, or fire inspections or prevention. So that's clearly pretty clear about what it will allow or won't allow.
Can a EMS levy
yes.
work for some of those things?
An EMS levy, yes, would work for a lot of the things on the right other than the snow removal.
Snow removal gets left out.
Yeah, it does,
no
right?
Snow removal in the city.
It'll eventually melt, right?
Yeah.
It'll eventually.
The challenge being...
By June.
Yeah, by June. On the left side, though, most of the things on the left side, the EMS levy does not support. Right. Yeah, so that's the challenge. This also doesn't officially become effective until July 27th of 2025, so that's in the statute. So ultimately, if you were to try to implement this, and I mentioned this last time, the Department of Revenue says you have to notify them 75 days in advance of whatever this takes place, because they've got to go out and notify all the businesses that are going to be collecting this sales tax, and it has to start at the beginning of a quarter. So we've already looked at it. There is no way to start it earlier than basically January 1st of 2026, which would mean the city would actually only start collecting money in March. We would get it towards the end of March because the taxes are collected by the businesses in January. It goes to the state in February. We get the money in March. Okay. So ultimately, for the council to make a decision about this, we would have to know to be able to put it on the ballot by September 9th of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Or, excuse me, not on the ballot, for you to adopt it, sorry.
To adopt it, yes.
Yeah,
By when?
Sorry. By September 9th. Sorry about
So we
that.
have some time
Yeah.
to think about it.
And this is limited to 1/10 of 1%?
Correct. Yep. So any questions from council on any of this? Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So one of the other things that we tried to do was do a little bit of a comparison because from my perspective, there's a three-legged stool that usually, for the most part, funds local government for cities. It's your utility tax, it's your sales tax, and it's your property tax. And we looked at 5 different cities here beyond our own and tried to put together what those numbers look like. And you can see where utility tax ranks. That one's a little bit difficult to do because some of them have higher rates on some things and lesser on another. Sales tax is pretty straightforward. This is what all of those communities are charging for sales tax. The property tax rate.
Sales tax, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else were high.
The property tax for the assessed value, there's a couple that are lower. There's a couple that are higher. We're kind of right in the middle of that. But then when you look at those that are lower than us, for the most part, they have significantly higher assessed values in terms of average. And I realize that Yakima's average of 356 is done with the same way the averages for all of those other cities are. So, for example, Wenatchee, their assessed value is 490,000. There's some that are significantly higher and some that are less to get to that average, just like it is in Yakima. And ultimately, we just wanted to make sure that the council saw this. Important for you to kind of see what the neighboring cities are looking at. Either way, these are the three major ways cities fund themselves.
Do you know what Union Gap's utility tax is?
I don't. I can check though. We can sure find out.
And maybe their sales tax also would be.
Okay. Yeah. Their sales tax will be 8.4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. With the 2/10, we've added the 2/10 in for the communication sales tax that will start October 1st.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I think that I want to mention, and I'll go to the next. Well, before I go to the next slide, I've also heard that the taxes are going up and things like that, and I guess what I would tell you is the federal tax goes up, the state tax goes up. The local taxes have been taken to the voters to be asked about the 0.2 cents for communication, the 0.3 cents for public safety that has gone on. Those things have passed overwhelmingly very well in our communities. And at the end of the day, I guess what I'm saying is the community, we don't ask the community for a lot. And at the end of the day, I think we have to ask when we need it. And I know that $9 million of cuts, when I look at that, there is a lot of red on that list. And if we can't fund it, there's not a lot of ways for us to be able to go in and change those things that are on that list without any kind of new revenue. Doesn't mean it has to be all revenue, but there's some things on there that if there's no revenue to do it, we have to stop doing those things. There's no choice. And I know that from my predecessor work that, I've worked 37 years at the county, a lot of times it's, we'll say no and then we'll find another way to fund this. I'm telling you right now, I don't see another way to fund the things that are on that list without some additional revenue. Okay?
How is it that Pasco has 8.9 and we only have 8.5? Can we go up to 8.9 if we want to?
Well, and again, that's the challenge with sales tax. The state authorizes what we are allowed to charge for and what we can use it for in almost every case. So ultimately, this 0.1 cent is probably the least restrictive, because at least it can still be used for public safety, where and that's pretty open. And to be quite honest, that's probably where a lot of our need is, because that's where our costs are rising tremendously. The other side, a lot of those, and I'll show you if you look at this is the other piece. I hope you can see that. This is the breakdown of where that sales tax comes from and where it goes by city. So you can see in Yakima, the 8.5% with that 0.2 cent for communication built in, and you can see then where everybody else is. A lot of the difference is in their transit and their PTBAs, which is their public transportation benefit area. I believe that's what it is. But
what
you
is
can
a
go
PFD?
Through Public Facilities District. And then the TBD is the Transportation Benefit District. And then the Housing and Related Services is the homeless. And that is the 0.1 cent, or it's not homeless, it's the housing 0.1 cent.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
We don't have a PFD.
We have a PFD, so the Pasco PFD, specifically when PFDs were first passed, the Pasco PFD was formed. They transferred. Oh, wow! I'm on. Oh, and they got loud all of a sudden. They transferred over their share of
PFD dollars to the Kennewick PFD, and then there was kind of a transfer back. But recently the citizens of Pasco approved 0.2% to support the aquatic center, and so they use that to fund and I think it recently opened their aquatic center in the city of Pasco.
That's through their PFD.
And that's through their PFD. So, but that was a voter approved.
So Yakima doesn't have a PFD.
You have a public facilities district.
But not a tax.
But not a sales.
Not a
sales tax.
So the public facilities districts were funded initially by the city, would create a sales tax, and it would be credited for the same amount against the state sales tax. I don't have that number in front of me of what that was, but then a lot of communities passed that and then utilized that to build convention centers, which is what the city of Yakima used for theirs, and Kennewick did. Richland used theirs for the Hanford Reach, and so there was different models across the state of what they used, but they were very limited use. They're public facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Hence public
So
facilities.
on our convention center, the LTAC funds help cover a part of that
The LTAC, but I'm get the
for the PFD.
and the PFD dollars
Yep.
likely go to that.
Can the PFD take a piece of our budget off of us?
No, because it's a very limited resource. So it's, well,
I mean, you're saying
No.
it's funding aquatic centers. We've
Yeah,
got
it
a
would-
bunch of those.
yeah, you would, I guess, let me say I don't know, because I think it's the capital portion, not the operating portion, but
I
I'm
believe it is capital.
not totally, I don't know that the voter approved. Initially, the state credit that was passed was capital only. I don't know about the voter approved, if that can be used for operating or for capital.
That's
Be
why
interesting to
so
know.
much went toward the convention center, the construction or reconstruction, remodeling in the convention center.
Right, yeah. I'm just thinking we have a lot of pools and aquatic centers. It'd be interesting to see if that's usable.
We'll take that note.
So how did we get a 25% refuse tax for utilities, but we didn't change the water or the sewer tax? Why did the city council do that way back when?
All three of us are new. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't
Because
think
every
Scott
time we
is
pass
here.
a tax, Rick,
Here
everyone
comes Scott.
freaks out.
He will be able to explain.
Oh, Mr. Schaefer.
Here he comes, we got the answer.
Seahawk fan.
Okay, back in 2019, when we initiated Clean City, the way it was first funded was by putting a 9% utility tax on Yakima waste. And so that was dedicated to Clean City. Then a year later, of course, we used some of for the actual city of the refuse division to fund the rest of that. But that's why the city's utilities are at 20, Yakima waste is at 25.
I see.
So it seems kind of weird to me that we are charging them 25, and then water and sewer is still at 20, and it's like, isn't that kind of a discrimination, or picking out one industry and going after them, or what?
Well, council made the decision back then because they focused on the fact that Clean City was targeting basically downtown Yakima. And so looking at commercial garbage, not city garbage.
So the 9%, where's the rest of it going?
Into the general fund.
Gotcha. I knew that. It's just saying it for the public.
Just getting it out there.
Yeah.
It seems kind of weird to me that if we're going to charge 25%, we should charge 25% on everything, but even that seems, we've got the highest utility tax around as is, which is kind of insane.
Could we go back to that? Now that Gary is up here too, I would like to talk a little bit about the Tri-Cities and how they are funded, because they have a lot of sales tax compared to the city of Yakima as far as the millions of dollars they can bring in with sales tax versus what's in our city. There's also, the utility tax is lower. I think it depends on the property values in the Tri-Cities. Also, they collect a lot more with a lower levy rate than, so it's kind of a cocktail of its own, how they are funded.
Different.
It's hard to compare our portfolio to theirs because our property values are lower, and we don't have as much business. We don't have a giant mall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so each one of the cities is a little different in their makeup. Richland has a lot of commercial business, but not retail. So it's manufacturing, it's the National Lab, which has a lot of private facilities. So they have a very large tax base, a lot of assessed value in North Richland. And I have helped to bring some of that. Kennewick is really, in the 70s and 80s, was kind of the Union Gap of the Tri-Cities. I mean, that's where the mall went. A lot of things went around it. A lot of the big boxes were around it. Pasco had the car dealership. They were actually the oldest of the three cities. And in Pasco, if you look, their property tax is really low. But for a number of decades, Gary Crutchfield was the city manager there. He really worked hard to keep they would actually lower their levy rate to provide cap space for the schools, because that school district was one of the poorest, and in schools they measure assessed value per student, and they had one of the lowest assessed value per student. So when they put out an operating levy, it had to be pretty high compared to a school like school district like not Othello, but the one with all the data centers. They have a very high Quincy. Yes, the Quincy School District has a very high assessed value per student. So anyway, that was an effort on their part. So they ran very lean. I think at one point their fire insurance even started going up because they were ratcheting that down a lot. So people's homeowners insurance were starting to rise. That's leveled off a little bit when Gary retired, but also there's been a lot of new development in Pasco with like Dairy Gold facility and things like that. So,
In those areas, a much higher potential for sales tax benefit because of the malls, because of the car sales, because of the industrial area.
Yeah, and they all three kind of compete against each other for that.
Yeah, they just built the $1 billion Dairy Gold plant.
Yeah, that's
so they got their
Pasco.
sales tax on that.
Right there.
Yeah.
Did you say $1 billion?
$1 billion.
Yeah, it's a
That's with a B. Yeah.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
I met those guys sitting in the back of my Toyota Tacoma pickup truck. So
Why didn't you call and bring them here?
Yeah.
well, I didn't work here then. I worked for Port of
All
Pasco.
about economic development. We're talking about stabilizing, right? Just stabilizing the budget right now so we can continue to function with a focus on moving into economic development in the future so they won't end up in this spot again.
That's right.
Yeah.
Chief Markham,
Go ahead, Chief,
can you
please.
add to that conversation?
Yes, I wanted to add something that I think is very important in the consideration in comparing the public safety departments, specifically Kennewick, Richland, Pasco, in what they do. The services they provide is a fire-based ambulance transport service. And what's not on that tax roll is they run it as a utility, and so each residential property, based on equivalent residential units, it's an average number of persons that live in a household, are charged a monthly fee. It's not a tax, it's a fee, and it's for their ambulance utility. And the current rates for 2025 are, for Kennewick, $16.69. Richland's the same. Richland is $19.69, and Pasco is $18.61 per month.
Dollars
per month per residential equivalent, which is probably around 4-5 people per household.
Wow.
And so they pay that on top of all of their property taxes, sales tax, and stuff like that.
Where does it collected at?
Yeah.
At
Collected through their utility services. And what that does is two things. One, it helps the fire department be the size that it is and has the capacity to respond to the medical emergencies that they respond to. Because there's two sides of any types of utility. There's the capacity to have the personnel and the equipment to respond to whether it's one call or 12,000. And then there's the demand on those services where it's your consumables, your fuel, and all these other things, and they have to kind of balance out. That's how they come up with these monthly these fees.
We can't do that?
Yeah, we can. We could, but right now we have a private
It's the
ambulance
first
company.
time I've ever heard about it.
We had 2 private ambulance companies that we'd have to force them out of business to do it
Okay.
and create our own utility.
There's the caveat.
That is the caveat. So these departments got into it a long time ago. And it probably could have been because of the fact that the ambulance company that was currently providing them service, similar to the one that was providing service in Sunnyside in the mid-'80s, left in the middle of the night. The fire department took it over and started doing the business and never gave it back.
Does it fund their entire fire department?
No.
Okay.
But it probably funds at a minimum 50-50, if not more. But the cost of service study determines what it can actually fund. They're not in the money to make, the business to make money, but to break even and to pay for all the capital costs, the personnel costs, and stuff like that. So I just thought that was value information as far as
That's very helpful in
comparables,
terms of comparisons. Thank you.
What's that called?
It's ambulance service utility fee. There's last time, and I haven't checked, there was about 9 or 10 in the state that operate that way. Moses Lake, Port Angeles, Sunnyside, 3 Tri-Cities, those areas.
Okay. Thank
So if
you.
you have a 50-unit apartment complex, the landlord has to pay for a proportional amount of that 50 units?
Yeah, how many are
Or is it
units?
in
It's-
billed to the individual? That's a big question.
It's a pretty simple answer. It's basically whatever size of the unit, how many people it can actually hold. If it's a 2-bedroom unit and it's average of 4.5 people, which is the equivalent residential unit, depending on what that's determined, then it's these rates applied per unit. Now, if it can't hold that many, then it would be proportionately less.
So is it the individual or tenant that has to pay it, or does?
That would be up
landlord
to
have
the
pay
property
it?
owner and the landlord, however they wanted to increase that cost.
Interesting.
But it still applies to businesses as well. If your business has 100 employees, that equivalent residential unit is divided by the number of employees, and then the business pays that because we respond to businesses just as much as we do to other places.
Have you ever ran the numbers if we did like $5 fee?
No, I have not, because I don't have the equivalent residential unit numbers for the city of Yakima and what that would look like. But I have done a cost of service study before. And it takes a lot of time, and it has to be approved by the Joint Legislative Audit Review Committee from the state to make sure what you are charging in a fee is fair and equitable. This was previously called a tax. They found that that was not constitutionally approved, and it was, believe it or not, the city of Kennewick versus an apartment complex. So now it is a
That's
fee.
considered a fee, right? Oh, thank you, Chief. We appreciate
It's
that.
an interesting
So if you
idea.
have like a movie theater that has maybe 500 people attending.
Nobody
the
lives in
show,
a movie theater, so you don't have to pay that.
So
It's based on employees.
Employees in the business.
Yes, correct.
Interesting.
I'm gonna go do some math.
But also remember that this would take a lot of research, a lot of time, talking with Olympia and instituting that kind of a change within the structure of the budget of the city. So I'm not saying this isn't worth considering, but it's
Going to be a while.
going to be a while.
Well, and I when I'm looking at all these things though, I'm going, well, the reason why their levy rate could be low is because of all these other aspects, right? But I'm also going, they also have more economic development happening than we do. They also have a lot more things, housing developments going on. All of those things are happening more so than we do. So I don't want to discount that because I'm like, that's probably their advantage that they found that we don't have. So it is worth us actually looking at it from that perspective and not trying to just go, well, yeah, but this is what I'm like, no, like they're eating our lunch when it comes to some of these things, and especially in economic development. And they've found the right formula, so to speak.
Well, and one of the reasons why we need to get our stuff together is because we want to start being competitive like that.
Exactly.
You know, we want to have economic development. So we can't do it now.
We kind of bogged down your presentation.
That's
I want to
okay.
go home tonight. Let's get done.
The last slide that we had was, one of the other questions that was asked last week was, what are we talking about in terms of the FTEs, the positions that would be impacted? So what we tried to do is our best guess of what these are by talking to the departments. So there's about 56 positions that would be eliminated here. I quickly added it up. Parks would be about 11 of the positions. Police would be 21 and a half positions, fire 11, and then Clean City was 7.5 positions. So, and then the rest of those, you can see we put the division on the left. The rest of them were really like human resources was a half or finance was a half, and you can see the rest of those. So we tried to make sure that that ultimately all of those questions were answered, and if you have any more, we'll definitely come back to them. I think really then, you know, the biggest challenge is we're kind of running out of time. Depending on what we decide, we kind of mentioned what the sales tax schedule looked like. The property tax schedule we know has to be to the county auditor by August 5th. And I know that it's going to take some time to, once the council gives us direction of which way you want to go, to get legal to go through and do whatever is needed for ballot measures or other resolutions or ordinances. So it doesn't need to be a decision that you make tonight, but I think we're quickly approaching that. And the other thing I would mention is these are things to be able to not have to make that whole $9 million cut. And, you know, I mentioned it last week. One of the biggest challenges we have is we've kind of used all of our reserves. We've kind of used all the bullets in the gun to be able to get through 2025. We've used all of our ARPA and federal money. We're using our reserve from 16.7 down to 12. We really can't drop that number much lower than that. So at the end of the day, it really either has to be an option of all cuts, all revenue, or something in between. And what that looks like really is for the council to really give us direction about where you want to be so that we know how to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Are you coming back in our, July 1st meeting with anything else in regards to, I mean, there was some other thoughts last week I think I had was the, I mean, obviously we know the dollar amounts, but I'm more so looking at like the rates of the levies. What are those, if we went sales tax, did this,
Yeah, we can definitely bring back, we did try to do the
That's what I asked
average
for, that's all I'm
assessed
asking.
value. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll do some higher priced homes and what that would look like versus some lower priced, and give you more maybe of a picture of what those would look like. If that's kind of what you'd like to see.
I'm not sure that's what you were asking.
No, I'm not necessarily asking for that. What I'm asking for is like, okay, so we put out a 2.7 million here, much like what the committee's talking about, the 2.7 million. Okay, so what are the rates for the other things so that we can get to those aspects, right? So for the, whatever the public safety, if we send it to the ballot, that one, and the parks levy on top of the sales tax,
Okay, I got you.
what are the two levy rates at that point?
Yeah, I understand. So you're talking probably for 2.7 million of a property tax for public safety, it's about 23 cents per thousand. And then I believe if I remember the parks, it was going to be 15 cents.
14 something.
Yeah, yeah. And that was going to generate about 1.8 million, and then with the fee adjustments and maybe some other adjustments to programs, we felt like we could come up with the other just over $200,000 for parks overall.
One of the things that kind of intrigues me, nonprofits don't pay property tax. And, you know, like I have one property that as soon as my son purchased it, the tenants were paying $50 a month property taxes. But before that, they weren't paying anything when a nonprofit owned it. I think there's a pretty good argument with the volume of nonprofit housing that's being supplied now. There's no reason why we shouldn't be levying property taxes on those people because they're using city services. There's no reason why they should be exempted. You know, they're getting subsidized housing in the first place, but to subsidize and not charge property tax to me seems like that's something. Is there something that the city can do to change that issue?
I don't believe so. I think that's pretty much the state requirements. And I'll give you a little history on when I was in the county. We're the second largest landmass county in the state besides Okanagan, right? Yep. And we have one of the lowest taxable property in the entire state. We only 18% of our land is actually taxable in the Yakima County. And that's because if you take off the Indian reservation, the state forest lands, and all of the other, you know, the federal, the firing center, and all of the other things, only 18% of the land is taxable.
Right.
You know, I asked Vicky to find out how many properties are specifically exempt by DOR. It was 600 listings inside just our city of parcels that are exempt from, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if those were being taxed, it would lower the burden of the whole county and change the whole complexion.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
we're going to send you to Olympia, Rick.
Now we got an all AWC meeting next week, and I want to bring that up.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I unfortunately, that's all at the state level. They ultimately make those decisions, and there always seems to be some, I don't want to say bill of the year that happens by the state legislature that gets passed to not bring that from 18% to 20, but it brings it from 18 to 17 or 16. And it seems to go the other way because there's always something that somebody wants to no longer pay tax for. And it's difficult because it means the rest of us, to cover the services that are needed that we want in our community, we have to pick it up. And that's the challenge. You know, you look at that sales tax number, and I'll go back to this. That first number, we're at 8.5. That first number is 6.5. That's all state. That all goes to the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get 2% of that number overall. And even then, when you look at a lot of it, it's not anything that the city really has put in. It's very restricted, yeah. And we have to share it with the county. We have to give 15% of our local sales tax to the county. We have to give 40% or 60% of the public safety, 3/10 to the county. Those are things that, and I get it, they provide services for criminal justice, but that's not money then that is available to run the city. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult.
Yeah, I mean, Vicki was saying in the email was $750 million is what that are exempt in assessed value. That just about equates to almost what you actually probably, you know.
Right.
Oh, look, there's $12 million right there in new property tax revenue.
So basically, July 2nd is going to be decision day, huh?
First.
July 1st, yeah.
July 1st, right? Anything else, gentlemen?
I wanted one note. Pretty much all I did for the Dairy Gold facility was meet them when I was in the back of my pickup truck. My friend Stephen McFadden at the Port of Pasco. Since we're in public meeting and Stephen listens to stuff, I don't want him to text me and go, "Dude, I did most of that project." So. But it's usually that does say it's a span of time to get those things going.
Yes.
It can take a long time.
$1 billion project.
But $1 billion, yeah.
Any other questions for council?
Massive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. Now we come down to item 10, which is city manager updates. Do you have any?
I just would share that tomorrow, Gary and I are going to the Chamber of Commerce, and we're going to do some business outreach and listening on how it's going in the business community right now, and we'll take it back to you if there's anything that we need to address or work on. But mostly we want the business owners of Yakima to understand in economic development with Gary, and as a former business owner myself, we want to provide a place where it's a good foundation to build your business, and we want to encourage business because that is the way that we will grow our way out of this. We're in a season of time right now that's very challenging, but that doesn't mean we can't get where we want to go. And so I want to encourage you. I know this has been difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other new business by council this evening? Deputy Mayor Brown.
I have just a few. Just a few.
give
No,
them one.
I'm just updating. So it was mentioned a little bit, some of our federal funding things. I reached out to Congressman Newhouse. We had a meeting with staff on Friday last week. We're supposed to be, they're working with us to figure some things out. So I just want to give council kind of an update on that so you guys know. I was actually very surprised at how fast I got a response back. So anyways, there's that. That's one thing. And then the other thing is there's an ordinance that is talking about, you probably all got emails about it. I was perplexed of how the ordinance was written. But it has to do with vehicles being on streets for more than 48 hours. As I was looking at the ordinance, we could literally add one sentence in there and it would be like very simple. And so to fix that issue. So I have a motion I move to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amendment for consideration at the July 1st City Council meeting using the language provided to amend Yakima Municipal Code 947040B and 947010J1B as follows. I'm not going to read all this, but it's on this paper. Mayor has one and the clerk has one. But really the amendment is adding in a line that says, unless the vehicle is currently registered with Washington State Department of Licensing, displays valid license plate, and is not visibly inoperable. Basically, we're not going to go impound your vehicle if those things happen, like if you have that. So anyways, that kind of just clarifies some of that, but adding that to an agenda July 1st.
Second. All right. So we have a motion by Deputy Mayor Brown and a second by Councilwoman Decio to add an amendment to Municipal Code 947040B and 947010J1B to add a sentence in to make it more clear.
At the July 1st meeting.
At the July 1st meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, then motion passes, and we will hear about it on July 1st. Any other business before council this evening?
I got nothing.
If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn to the next council regular meeting on July 1st, 2025 at 5:30 PM in City Hall chambers.
A second. Oh. All right, you got it.
So we have a motion by Councilman Glenn and a second by Councilman Berg to adjourn to the next city council regular meeting on July 1st, 2025, 5:30 PM here at City Hall. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.